as not amounting to hate speech, as well as the Supreme Court of Appeal's affirmation of that Equality Court judgment. So the Constitutional Court has found that AfriForum's intended appeal bore no reasonable prospects of success. This means that the SCA judgment handed down last year stands as the final word on the matter. In terms of that judgment, you'll remember in the context in which the song was sung, Malema and the EFF's singing of Dubule Punu did not amount to hate speech, but rather a form of political speech. Those were the words used in that judgment, a form of political speech that taps into the historical tradition of the song to make a call to action, to end land and economic injustice in this country. So that's what the law is as we speak this morning on Friday, the 28th of March, 2025, as far as that issue is concerned. So we'll speak to Sinawo Tambo, the EFF spokesperson, at about 20 to 7 this morning. But I'm keen to hear your reactions as well. And is it time to, I don't know, for AfriForum to perhaps explore different strategies in engaging with Julius Malema? I've always gotten the sense that every time they litigate against him, and they've done that quite many times from the time when he was in the ANC Youth League, he uses the platform very effectively to push his message through. So whenever there's that court case, he makes sure that he takes full advantage of it. And I've always gotten the sense that, I don't know, maybe they appreciate it, maybe they don't. But my sense has been that AfriForum does not have an appreciation of how much of a platform they've been giving someone that they perhaps consider to be an adversary. Julius Malema uses that opportunity to push through his message very effectively in those testimonies in court, etc. Clearly litigation, the point I'm making is clearly litigating against him is not working. And it would seem to me that when they engaged with him through those processes that led to that mediation that they then formalized in the form of a court order at some point around this very issue, they got more done than they've been getting done through litigation, because right now, actually, in any case, the room for further litigation is closed. So I don't know. It may be worth thinking about, Kalikril and others, that, you know, perhaps it's time for you to engage as South Africans. And this message, I suppose, goes to the EFF as well, to say it may be time for them to find one another around this issue. But certainly, litigation has clearly not worked. My conversation with Sinawo Tambo coming up at about 20 to 7 this morning. The other story that we'll highlight quite prominently is around the budget. As the week wraps up, the country is now mere days away from potentially living through a period of unprecedented fiscal and monetary policy uncertainty. Fiscal policy, not monetary policy. Fiscal policy uncertainty with a budget possibly not adopted by a parliamentary majority vote. Until the debacle that was this year's budget played itself out, few of us had really understood and appreciated Parliament's role in finalizing the budget, right? We never really thought of it. We thought the minister delivers the speech and that's it, that's the end of it. And that's because the ANC had always had a majority. That meant that what the finance minister would announce in his speech was guaranteed majority support in the national legislature. Well, that script was torn to shreds in last year's elections, and now we are all learning that what the finance minister puts through in the speech is actually a set of proposals, just that, proposals to be dealt with by MPs as money bills. That's what they are called, money bills, in terms of the Constitution. So we will unpack that situation, what we are likely to see unfolding over the coming days. We're scheduled to speak to the National Assembly House Chairperson for Committees, Oversight and Public Participation, Cedric Frolick, will speak to me at the top of 7 o'clock to just talk us through what the process looks like. What happens if there's no majority vote in favor of the budget? How does spending continue? Do we have something comparable to what the United States have which is a government shutdown. I'm pretty sure that we don't, but even this expenditure, from what I understand, is then based on the budget of last year. What are the disadvantages that come into effect when a budget is not adopted? Cedric Frolick, my guest at the top of 7. Then, in light of what we've been talking about, you and I, the last few days, about Ithala Bank. Ithala Bank has come up quite a few times. We will report on that story as we undertook that we would. A spirited debate ensuing in the National Council of Provinces this week over the pending liquidation of KwaZulu-Natal's Ithala Bank. So a key thread in that debate was parties arguing for the institution to be saved from liquidation, and the argument that its closure would be a major setback for economic transformation and would exacerbate financial exclusion, particularly for historically disadvantaged communities. So we'll bring that conversation back and also bring into light the comparisons that some have been drawing between what is happening with Ithala Bank and what happened with VBS Mutual Bank, and the whole looting, large-scale looting that happened in that bank. Kaya Sitole will join us in the second hour of the show, in the first half hour of the hour 7. And of course, we have all of your regulars locked and loaded for you once again on this Friday morning. And Musa is back. I feel like doing a drum roll, okay? I want and Musa back with your news updates at the top of every hour, at the top and at the bottom of every hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic updates every 15 minutes or so. Zai Khan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. And of course, we're taking your calls on the number 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And we are live on our YouTube channel. That is SAFM Radio. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Friday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
So I feel like doing a drum roll. Should I do a drum roll?
I deserve it.
You do. Mpo? Mpo is here. No drum roll lined up for you. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. I mean, my dedication on a Friday. Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. Before the show is up. You're leading with the appearance of the former National Assembly Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula.
Yes, the corruption case against the Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, back in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria today, and she's facing 12 counts of corruption and one of money laundering for allegedly extorting a multi-million rand bribe from a contractor while she was the Defence Minister. And then we also looking at a number of other court cases. In the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial, the investigating officer, Captain Wesley Lombard, he's expected to take the stand again this morning to continue with his testimony, and he has been testifying for the state in the trial of Killy Smith, Jacqueline Butapolis and Stevino van Rijn in the Western Cape High Court sitting at Saldanha Bay. The case against a suspect that was arrested in connection with the torture and assault incident that took place at the Zanzu nightclub in Pretoria, also due back in the Pretoria Magistrates Court, and the name of the 41-year-old accused is being withheld at this stage, and this is due to an anticipated identity parade. He's facing six charges of assault and 8 of compelled sexual assault. Reaction on the Constitutional Court judgment dismissing AfriForum's application for leave to appeal the ruling, which found that the Kill the Boerchan did not constitute hate speech, and lobby group AfriForum has criticized the court's decision to dismiss the appeal. It is also the final day of the National Water and Sanitation Indaba. It will officially be closed by the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, and yesterday he was answering oral questions in the National Council of Provinces, saying that government is confident that it will be able to eradicate water shortages in the country, and we know that resolving the water crisis is one of the priority tasks that was outlined by the President President Cyril Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation address, but government needs about 800 billion rand in the next 10 years. This is only to fix water infrastructure and distribute clean water. And also just lastly, looking at the deadline for SASSA grant beneficiaries to swap their gold cards for the new Postbank card that has been extended to the 30th of April this year, and SASSA confident there'll be no further deadline extensions. So far, about 1.3 million of the 2.6 million social grant beneficiaries have successfully made the switch. So some of the stories that we will be focusing on.
Before you go, Anne, you know the expression "abur makaplan."
Ah, yeah.
Twee
I'll
boere,
get the plan.
twee boere het 'n plan gemaak hier by die atelier.
Okay, and wie is dit?
Listen to this.
Welcome
back.
Thank you. I'm even clapping for myself.
That's Anne Musa there, back after a long period of absence. She'll be giving you updates every half hour on the news here on The Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Here's how your Friday weather is looking this morning. We have quite a few impact-based warnings, so I'll go through them and then give you highlights of the rest of the country. The first one, take it quite seriously. It's an orange level 5 warning for severe thunderstorms leading to flooding, damage to settlements, property or vehicles, and infrastructure. Those conditions are expected in places over the central and northern interior of the Eastern Cape. Then there's a yellow level 2 warning for severe thunderstorms leading to localized damage to settlements, property and vehicles, and disruption to power supply, and those conditions expected in places over the Eastern Cape, except in the extreme east. A yellow level 2 warning says disruptive rainfall leading to localized damage to settlements, property and vehicles, and disruption to power supply. Those conditions are expected in places over the eastern northwest, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Highveld, as well as the extreme northeastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. And then you have a yellow level 2 warning. It says damaging winds leading to localized damage to settlements, property or vehicles, disruption of harbors and ports, and difficulty in navigation at sea. Those conditions are expected in places along the coast between Oyster Bay and Coffee Bay, as well as over Koga local municipality and the Nelson Mandela Bay metro of the Eastern Cape. The rest of your weather and the temperatures look like this. Pretoria 15 to 22, Johannesburg 13 to 20, Mbombela 18 to 26, Polokwane 17 to 24, Mahikeng 17 to 24, Bloemfontein 15 to 26, Kimberley 17 to 29, Uppington 21 to 33, Cape Town 18 to 28, George 13 to 26, Gqeberha 17 to 24, East London 18 to 24, Durban 19 to 26, Richards Bay 20 to 26, and finally Pietermaritzburg 15 to 24.
It's always, hey, choose my kettle. It's this or that, Baba. But why? Why can't I service my car and pay for my wedding service as well? With a Nedbank personal loan, that's a rhetorical question because I can do both with access of up to 400,000 Rand at the best interest rate that is customized for me.
Don't let cash flow hold you back. Apply for your Nedbank personal loan online today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
It's coming up to 24 minutes after 6. Finland has reclaimed its spot as the world's happiest country for the 8th consecutive year, and that's according to the 2023 World Happiness Report. The report, which ranks over 140 countries based on survey data, highlights factors such as social support, life expectancy, and freedom to explain global happiness variations. Finland, along with other Nordic countries, exemplify the importance of strong social systems, personal connections, and trust among citizens in achieving contentment. Let's speak to Professor Talita Greiling from the School of Economics at the University of Johannesburg. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. And just in case someone is wondering, we were ranked 95th as South Africa in terms of that ranking of the World Happiness, 95th out of 147 countries. But how do you even measure such an intangible as happiness?
Tula, that's a very good question. The point is, if we look at happiness and the concept that they use happiness there, it's not what you think. It's not jumping and dancing and smiling. What they are measuring is quality of life, but it's your own perception of your quality of life. So it's on a ladder, which they say, imagine your worst quality or life satisfaction and your best, and tell us where you're on that ladder. So if they say Finland is the happiest country, then the term is wrong. It should be who has the highest life satisfaction. And they do have the highest life satisfaction based on the quality of education. They've got enough money. They are healthy. Yes. Are they happy? No. No, they're not happy.
Sure. So, but what's the interaction between the factors that are outside of our control, as in those that are supplied by the state, education, healthcare, etc., which are important in one's happiness, but versus the social connections, the feelings of isolation versus being integrated and being part of a community?
Well, if you think of external factors which can increase your life satisfaction, that will be something like your income, your health, education. But if we look at Africa, Africa is really, and you know that we had the first launch of the World Happiness Report in Africa ever at the University of Johannesburg. But if you consider Africa's wealth is Ubuntu. So the generosity, benevolence, caring for the community, sharing a meal. And that is as important as money for your life satisfaction. Definitely in Europe, it has been proven, the research not so in depth in Africa, where I think money still plays a bigger role because it's meeting basic needs. But so social relationships can be some kind of barrier that actually give us resilience to hardships. And that is what we have in Africa.
I love that expression. Please say it again. Africa's wealth is
generosity, benevolence, caring for the community. Yeah. So that is the wealth that Africa has, which the rest of the world or the Western worlds don't have. And you will see how much research is now done on Africa to see, can they bottle what we have and export it to the Western world? But they can't. This is our wealth that we have, caring for one another.
But if we say that, Prof, why is it then that South Africa ranks as low as it does, 95th out of 147 countries? Why is that?
Thulasizwe, you know what is our education level compared to Western world, and our health expectancy is 54. Finland, 74. If you look at our GDP per capita, it is a fraction. And remember, so we're not speaking about happiness here. We are speaking about quality of life. And then we all rank much lower than they are. And we take it, that's true. But are we happy? We are happy, and we are more happy than Finland. So even if you look at the Finnish comedians, they say the Finns are not happy. They were very surprised when they become the happiest country in the world, because they are not.
Yeah.
So, but they have a very good quality of life, and they are very content with what they have. So the health, education, and the amount of money they've got, and their social networks, which means like capture your, or which can support you if you don't have an income. So that's very good, but not happy.
Yeah. So outside of fixing the bigger structural issues that clearly are going to take time for us to fix as a country, the economy, employment, the quality of our education and health, what are the low-hanging fruits that, I don't know, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, that countries such as the Nordic countries that ranked highly, among other factors that they have, are basic amenities, right, in cities, the quality of air, the quality of water, and the likes. Would that go some way? Provision for spaces for people to really enjoy the environment and the outdoors, for example?
Well, that will help them. What will help South Africans to be happy, emotionally happy? And I measure emotional happiness, so that is having joy, fun, almost in real time with the GNH.Today index. And there I can clearly see what makes South Africans happy or happier, because we're already happy, or what makes them sad. I can tell you load shedding has a severe effect on the happiness and the mood of people.
Absolutely.
Not having water. These are basics. So if we can just start off with the basics, give people electricity and water, that can already improve not only the emotional happiness, but also the standard of living. And this is basic infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be there.
Yeah, it's not high end, something extra and above what should be provisioned anyway. Yeah.
It's not getting clean air. We've got clean air, but this is just the basic things. Can we drive on a road without breaking, going through potholes, breaking our backs with all the bumps? So these are really basic things that we should start off with.
Yeah,
before we go to the next steps.
Just lastly, Prof, I wonder if you monitor this. Countries such as Bhutan have a Ministry of Happiness, and there's quite a few of them. Do you have any evidence that helps when there's like a government department and a minister responsible to ensure that citizens are happy?
If you look at Bhutan itself, you will see that their happiness levels aren't the highest that you can find, but they drive to that. And we can say that that is also part of their religion. If you look at any of the Asian countries, it's a different concept. But for sure, if you have New Zealand has a happiness budget, in other words, everything driven in New Zealand is towards happiness, and you can see their happiness levels are high and has been increasing. If that is your goal and you drive to that, you will reach it. But remember, the concept happiness is also education, health, income.
Absolutely.
So we for South Africa, basics. First start fixing the infrastructure.
All right, Prof, let's leave it there.
Education, very important.
Let's leave it there. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. That's Professor Talita Greiling from the School of Economics at the University of Johannesburg. There you heard it. New Zealand leading there with a happiness budget. It's not too late. Kodongwana. Think about it. We are happy, though, to have Ann Musa back with your news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Deputy President Paul Mashatile will today officially close the National Water and Sanitation Indaba at the Gallagher Convention Centre in Midrand. President Cyril Ramaphosa officially opened the two-day Indaba yesterday. Former National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula will be back in the High Court in Pretoria this morning. Her corruption case was postponed in January. This after the state succumbed to the defence demand to disclose two sections of the docket of the accused. And King Charles has spent a short time in hospital after experiencing side effects from his cancer treatment. The 76-year-old British monarch was diagnosed with an undisclosed form of cancer in February last year. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Crash coming into Galulis, leaving the Ekurhuleni area. Both the N12 and R24 routes are quite heavily backed up as you line up into that particular scene, coming in from Boksburg or arriving in from the airport. Very heavy queues. There's also on the opposite side, maybe a bit of onlooking, but a stationary truck as well. So the N3 North coming out from Germiston, queues all the way up to Galulis to link through the interchange and into that mess that is the N12 East as well. N3 North at Spruitview is heavy. Queues up towards the Heidelberg Road off-ramp. And coming into Pretoria, Mopani Highway, very heavy. Theo Martin's down towards the Bend area, and the alternative route, the M35 Soutpan Road, coming into Ondersteport, having left Shoshingu, that's quite heavy as well. Durban, a truck crash on the M7. It's jackknife before the Belleville Road exit. That's heading away from the N2 towards Pinetown, so there's some pressure there. Major truck crash at Ashburton on the Peter-Maritzburg bound carriageway. Just after Ashburton, there's some real queuing pressure. The right lane is closed there. Because this truck has largely ended up in the Central Reservation, there will be an impact on the Durban bound carriageway as well as you come down towards the Ashburton exit. Cape Town, M7 out of Mitchell's Plain looking a lot better than it used to do. So the M7's flowing. That's relieved a lot of the diverting pressure through Strandfontein. So not going to affect his Strandfontein looking a lot better. And the N7, Jake Scoville Drive, it has been a headache this week. I can confirm the roadworks are still in place. N7 southbound at Goodwood, down by Voortrekker. One lane open, traffic queuing. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you. So Royal AM, we sort of focused on this story some time back around them coming up for auction, and it looked like it was promising there was going to be a deal, but no deal.
Oh, no deal. They say money talks, but in this deal, the money just ghosted because Royal AM's of financial rescue crashed after the much-publicized club sale fell through. The SARS-appointed curator confirming that the Durban businessman Roy Moodley, who bid for the club, failed to pay the agreed amount before yesterday's deadline. Players are back at training this week after the club believed the deal was done, but now uncertainty looming again over the future of the KZN outfit. The PSL Executive Committee has even scheduled a meeting to deliberate on the sale, which was cancelled after the payment failure. Legal action is now on the cards as the club's financial troubles deepen. Now, the Kenyan Football Federation has launched an investigation into allegations that goalkeeper Patrick Mtasi has been involved in match manipulation. The 37-year-old who plays for Kenyan Premier League club Kakamega Homeboys has won over 30 international caps. Cricket, Tsepang Ditole's unbeaten 47, helping the Dolphins to 83 for 2 at stumps on day one of their Cricket South Africa 4-day series encounter against the Lions at the Wanderers. The match started an hour and a half late due to a wet outfield. After getting underway, two teams were on and off the field due to weather interruptions throughout the day. The first day was curtailed by bad light after tea. More cricket, Tony de Zorzi had an outstanding 141, powering Western Province to 373 for 3 on day one of the Cricket South Africa 4-day series match against Boerland at Newlands. The hosts won the toss, elected to bat first, and batted themselves into a strong position thanks to the de Zorzi ton. Tennis action, Jakub Mensik defeated Arthur Fields 7-6, 6-1 in their Miami Open quarterfinal match. Here's Mensik.
That's true, yeah, that was probably the key for today's match, you know, because obviously I was having 2 days off, our tour played, you know, yesterday against Alex, you know, very tough match, so the advantage was on my side. Actually, for me, of course, it was quite different because it was my first match on the center court, which is quite different than the other courts. So for me, it was also important to get into the rhythm as soon as possible, you know.
And Novak Djokovic defeated Sebastian Korda in their Miami Open quarter-final match. That's a wrap. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning, let's say good morning to Ntauleng Lechela. So Ntauleng, these tariffs, especially when they relate to Canada and China, there seems to be, I don't know, a yo-yo effect that today they're up, tomorrow they're down. Tell me about Donald Trump possibly lowering the tariffs on Chinese goods. And this has to do with his intentions around TikTok?
That's right, Silas, and morning. It feels like a case of deja vu, where we're finding ourselves back in the position we're in January, and that in relation to TikTok. Now, this comes as U.S. President Donald Trump expressed willingness to reduce tariffs on China to facilitate a deal between TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, and a U.S. buyer. Now, this move aims to address national security concerns surrounding TikTok's ownership by a Chinese company. ByteDance faces an April 5th deadline to divest TikTok or risk yet another U.S. ban. Now, Trump has acknowledged China's role in approving any deal and hinted at tariff reductions as a bargaining chip. China's Commerce Ministry has maintained its consistent stance on tariffs, emphasizing mutual respect and benefit. Now, the sale of TikTok is a priority for the Trump administration, with White House-led talks focusing on a plan for non-Chinese investors to acquire TikTok's U.S. operations. TikTok's future in the U.S. remains uncertain, with the app briefly banned in January before Trump's executive order postponed enforcement. The White House has played an active role in deal talks, while free speech advocates argue that the ban violates the First Amendment.
I'm just struck as you are saying that. I'm just struck by how everything, almost everything, is really a deal for Donald Trump. It's a transaction. Right. Like he's not putting on a performance. This is who he is at his core. Because I mean, if we were told that these tariffs have to do with the ease with which fentanyl is allowed to be manufactured and enters the United States, how is now getting into this transaction around TikTok helping with that situation? Anyway, Lululemon. Tell me about Lululemon and their earnings growth. Who is Lululemon? I get the feeling that I should know who they are, but at this moment I can't remember.
It's a very Gen Z.
Is it okay? Then I don't feel bad.
So they make athletic apparel retailer, and all the yoga girls love Lululemon's clothes. So their growth in the Americas has stalled. They've reported flat comparable sales in the region despite beating Wall Street's earnings estimates. Looking at its overall performance, the company's first quarter results showed earnings per share of $2.5, surpassing expected $2.38, and revenue of $2.2 billion, slightly above the anticipated $2.1 billion. Zooming in on the Americas performance, sales increased by 3% compared to a 17% jump in the same period last year. The company's CEO, Calvin McDonald, acknowledged the challenges in the Americas, citing issues with inventory management, including a lack of popular sizes and colors. Now, despite the disappointing results in the Americas, McDonald remains optimistic, highlighting the company's strong momentum in international markets and a significant runway for growth ahead. Lululemon also announced a $1 billion stock buyback program, which boosted its shares in extended trading. But the company's guidance not looking good for the current period, which it says sales and revenue as well as earnings could possibly come in weaker. It expects revenue to be between $2.4 billion and $2.42 billion.
All right, please give us our first roundup of market activity for the morning, Dowling.
So another day of red screens with U.S. markets still digesting President Trump's latest tariff moves. Auto stocks feeling the most pressure. The Nasdaq on that front taking the hardest knock, losing over 0.5% in yesterday's session. That risk-off mood filtering through to the local markets with the all share pretty flat but under the flat line, losing 0.03%, and the Financial 15 shading 0.46%. Some weakness coming through in the currency markets, a stronger dollar impacting the rand this morning. It's at 18.26 to the greenback. Then over in Asia, markets trending lower. This as Trump's trade policies continue to weigh on sentiment.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauleng Lechela with the first report of the morning. Catch more of her insights. She'll be back just after 7:30 here on The Morning Brief.
Get down to Dis-Chem Pharmacies for awesome autumn savings for the whole family. Get 20% off Blade 260ml shave gels. Buy any 2 Safeguard Hygienic 1 litre shower and bath gels for only 110 Rand. Save 49 Rand 98. And get 20% off Dental Mate mouthwashes. Don't miss out. Offers valid until Sunday, 13 April. Only at Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Better health starts here.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard, to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
16 minutes to 7 on this Friday. Let's turn to this story now. The country is currently experiencing a concerning rise in respiratory diphtheria cases, with a significant number of infections recorded in 2024 and 2025. The National Institute for Communicable Diseases, NICD, is urging the public, particularly parents, to review and update the vaccination status of their children to combat this dangerous and preventable illness. Let's speak to Dr. Jocelyn Moyes, a medical epidemiologist at the NICD. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So this is truly concerning, isn't it? We're talking about 40 confirmed cases and a few fatalities.
Yes, morning Thulasizwe. Yes, it's very concerning, particularly that diphtheria is a vaccine preventable illness. So we are very concerned, yes.
So tell me about I think we're talking about 19 fatalities. It's over a period of how long?
No, it's 9. It's
okay.
over the periods, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
It's over the period about mid-2024 up until this last week, yes.
Is this higher than usual, the incidence of respiratory diphtheria cases, but also this rate of this fatality ratio?
Yes, so we, because diphtheria is vaccine preventable and the vaccine is in our expanded program of vaccination schedule for children and, infants and children, we really don't expect to see any cases of diphtheria. So the fact that we're seeing cases is concerning, firstly. I think the important thing to remember is diphtheria is a rare illness, and over the last 15 years, we've seen very few cases. I think that the total is about 30 cases over the last 15 years. So it's a rare illness. It is treatable, but when these outbreaks occur, I think sometimes there are cases that that they pop up, and clinicians are not aware of diphtheria, and it's not in their first line.
Yeah.
It does carry a high mortality rate, even in the best circumstances, and this is mostly because the bacteria that causes diphtheria releases a toxin, and it's the toxin that causes the damage to the body. So I don't think our fatality rate is exceptionally high, but I think it could be better. Particularly, well, actually, we shouldn't really be seeing cases. People should be getting vaccinated, and then we wouldn't see cases, and then we wouldn't have any fatalities.
How do we account for the current, infections and the cases that we are seeing now? That, as you say, this is otherwise a rare illness that is vaccine preventable. So how do we account for why we're seeing so many cases now?
So outbreaks of vaccine preventable illnesses are always caused by some gap in the vaccine, in vaccination. So diphtheria is one of the vaccines that's given to infants, young infants, babies, and then it's boosted, so just to give extra immunity at 18 months of age, at 6 years of age, and at 12 years of age. And it appears that it's those 6 and 12-year booster doses that are being missed, which is leading to people becoming susceptible to getting diphtheria. So that is why we are urging people to have a good look at vaccine status, to update your vaccines, visit a clinic, talk to the sisters there, see what's missing, and catch up those vaccines.
But do we know why those booster vaccines are being missed, especially at those ages that you're talking about? Was there something that we were doing, perhaps, I don't know, in collaboration with the education department and other departments, social development, that was ensuring that those were being taken, and perhaps we've been sort of lax with that? Or was it, do we account for it with the difficulties of the COVID-19 years?
Well, I think there's no doubt, and we all are aware, that the COVID-19 years did make access to healthcare for preventable illnesses and vaccines difficult, because clinics were overwhelmed and people were scared to go to facilities where people had COVID. So we know for sure that may well have caused some of this gap. I think also that it is possible that people are not as aware of older childhood vaccines as they are of the infant vaccines. So it's very easy when you have a small baby to be in the program of going every 6 weeks for your vaccines and reminded. Then you have the 18-month one, and someone says to you, you've got to come back when the child's 6. And I think that's the one that's difficult. People forget.
Yeah.
It goes out of your mind. You finished with your vaccine schedule, and I think those are the ones. But I do agree that they should be, vaccine programs should be tied into other, into other programs such as,
and all of society.
Yes.
All of society approach. Doc, I'd like you to just talk to us then about, someone listening, what are the symptoms that I should be looking out for, and also the issue of how transmissible it is.
Okay, so I'll start with the transmissibility. It's highly contagious. That said, you need to have fairly close contact with someone. So anybody living in a household with someone with diphtheria is at high risk. The other contacts are, because it's a respiratory droplet, and now people are aware of respiratory transmissions since COVID.
Yes.
So you need to be fairly close to someone for 15 or 20 minutes breathing in the same air. So although it's highly contagious, you need to be fairly close. It presents usually with a sore throat, a low-grade fever. You'll feel unwell, generally not good. And the other big important symptoms is big swollen glands in the neck.
And just lastly then, a call to action. Someone listening to this conversation, concerned and perhaps thinking about what to do. What is your word to people listening to this conversation around what we should be doing now at this point with this rise in cases?
Well, I think firstly, it's really good that the public are aware. So if anybody experiences these symptoms, it's really important to seek care early. The reason for that is it is treatable. And often, if people present late, the effective treatment, the antitoxin medication that we have and the antibiotics don't work as well. So please, if you're unwell, you have these kind of symptoms of a sore throat and large glands in your neck, please see somebody as soon as possible. That's the first thing. The second thing is obviously to sort your vaccination status out. So even adults, I think there's a big move globally to life course vaccinations.
Yeah.
So to get out of your head that, vaccines are just for small babies, to go and see a healthcare provider and say, as far as I know and can remember, I never had my 12-year-old vaccines. Please, can we look at my vaccination status and get it updated?
Right.
And then a call to parents of small children. Vaccines can be caught up too. So, if your child has missed one dose, 18 months or 6 years, don't be afraid to go and say, please, can we catch that one up? And get back on track with the vaccines.
Doc, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Dr. Jocelyn Moyes, who is a medical epidemiologist at the NICD.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Galulis is a mess. It probably is most of the time, but this morning it's a very early start to major delays. A crash coming into the interchange from the Ekurhuleni side. So N12 and R24 routes are heavily backed up. N12 getting back past Craft Road towards Jet Park. R24 parking back through the Edenvale exit. So heavy as you come out from the airport of Boksburg to Joburg. And at the same time, the N3 North is taking a battering because of a stationary truck as you come off the N3 North onto the N12 East at Galuli. So big pressure from the Germiston side this morning. Crash on the Mike 1. In fact, there are two crashes on the Mike 1. One around Smith Street, causing a backlog coming through from Boyson's, also impacting M2 flow from Joe Slovo. Once you emerge from that, another collision up by Glenhove Road on the Mike 1 going north. A crash on the N1 at Ravonia causing some delays as well. Just a reminder, if you're driving out of Durban through to Pietermaritzburg, it's going to be a morning of very heavy backlogging going on there. A crash involving a truck at Ashburton, just north of Ashburton towards Pietermaritzburg. Major delays and stacking in that area. The full road may be closed shortly if it isn't already. So think about an off-ramp at Linfield Park, hop onto the old road, which is already actually very busy. And there will be an impact if you're a Durban-bound side as well. Having a look at that. Jackknife truck on the M7 at Belleville. So if you're heading off the M2 out towards the Pinetown area, that's quite a heavy backlog to work through. Cape Town, still no traffic lights on Stellenbosch Arterial at Westbank. So queues towards the R300. And just confirming the N7, Jake Skerville Drive, roadworks that are being causing ridiculous traffic queues all week are still there this morning. You can find about a 50-minute queue at times to get through that coming off the N1 highway. So good idea while those works are on the N7 south of Goodwood to be looking at alternative routes to avoid it. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The boxing ring will be dominated by strong and heavy punches. Who will be named the King of Gauteng between Manuel Sekele and Simon Mueti? In the flyweight division, Tiamo Zwane of Northwest battles it out with KZN's Bonelo Maseko. Also in the flyweight division, there is more exciting bouts this Friday evening. This is the National Boxing Championship. Witness the powerful exchange of punches this Friday, 28 March at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take a call from Churchill in the Eastern Cape. Good morning to you, Churchill. You want to talk to me about the singing of the song Dubuli Bunu and the Constitutional Court's decision?
Yes, Tulas. Tulas, look, I'm not a legal expert, but in my humble opinion, I think I've got a problem with this particular judgment. You know, in my view, I feel that there are many other important issues that we could cling on to in our history that are very much important, but I think we should rise above this one. Because, look, between me and you, maybe we could understand it better, but to somebody else out there, this particular one has got a potential of fueling violence and divisions in our country. Especially at this critical time when we're trying to mend relations between our trading partners, the U.S. being our second largest, and many others, Western countries. And you'll agree with me, there are many other law-abiding white South Africans who are loyal to the cause of this country, who feel scared when such songs are being sung. That's my view. That's my view. And I'm not sure, I'm not opening any can of worms, but I think we should get the entire judgment in its entirety. How did they arrive on this particular one? Because I think this one we should let go.
Okay.
There are many other important issues, honestly.
Gotcha. Churchill, thank you for that. Actually, the entire judgment, because the Constitutional Court did not hear this as an appeal, so the entire judgment that you're talking about, Churchill, and I would encourage you to interact with it, is now the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment. So therein you have all of the reasoning, how they came to the conclusion that this doesn't amount to hate speech but permissible political speech. So get a hold of that judgment, engage with it, and I do believe that over the coming days we will have the opportunity to talk about it and some of the reasoning a bit more.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
So, amid growing concerns over a recent borehole incident that damaged the Gautrain tunnel in Johannesburg, the Borehole Water Association of South Africa, BWA, has stepped forward to clarify misconceptions about borehole drilling. At the National Water and Sanitation Indaba held between the 27th and since yesterday, actually, the BWA emphasized that borehole drilling is a legal and essential practice when done responsibly. I'm joined now by Albertus Lombard, the technical advisor in the BWA drilling division. I suppose the big question that many of us had, Albertus, was when we saw this incident was, how was that even possible? What are the factors in your reading of that situation made it possible for someone to drill a borehole ostensibly with no requisite approval and to also drill that deep to be able to affect the Gautrain route?
Duran, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, that was a very unfortunate incident, and unfortunately, the company wasn't a member of the BWA. Borehole drilling itself is not an illegal activity. It's a very important activity to access groundwater and to make sure that you can use that water. But every drilling activity has got some risks involved, and one need to mitigate those risks in a proper manner. In the city of Joburg, you need to go through a process, and maybe those contractors didn't know how to understand the risk or mitigate the risk with the help of the city. And hence, that unfortunate incident happened.
Yeah.
But if you look at normal borehole drilling, your contractor must understand the risk. And the Borehole Water Association, we promote legal drilling, we promote knowledgeable drilling, we promote safe access to groundwater. It's important.
How easy or difficult is it to get the requisite permissions with the City Council and other authorities before, starting the drilling?
At the moment, with the city of Joburg, I'm just talking about the city. Different cities in South Africa has got different ways of doing it. With the city of Joburg, it takes about 3 months to get permission once you start the process. I don't know in other cities. I know in Tshwane, it's a bit. They take a different approach where they say the risk is on you as the contractor and the site owner. In Joburg, they say don't drill before we've given you consent.
And issues such as navigating the, features such as servitudes, because I imagine, for instance, in this example that affected the Gautrain, I imagine that there must be a servitude that must be noted on all properties along which that line runs, even though the line is actually underground.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a very clear servitude. Our company helped the Gautrain drilling when it was constructed, and they shared those servitudes with us, and they made sure that we're well within the safety boundaries of the Gautrain. So once again, if the contractor followed the due risk assessment process, if they did a proper risk assessment, one of the steps that they might have come upon was to look at, are there any servitudes, because that's part of your risk assessment, and then they would have made contact either with the city of Joburg or with the Gautrain itself to make sure that they don't go in there. The other aspect is also one needs to look at the geological knowledge that the contractor has when you drill. You need to understand what you're intercepting, and you need to be able to interpret what's coming out of the ground as part of your risk assessment.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Albertus Lombard, who is technical advisor in the BWA drilling division. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Deputy President to officially close the water and sanitation in Daba, and the EFF welcomes Concord judgment. Good morning. Deputy President Paul Mashatile will today officially close the National Water and Sanitation in Daba at the Gallagher Convention Centre in Midrand in Gauteng. President Cyril Ramaphosa officially opened the two-day Ndaba yesterday. He underscored government's commitment to tackling the country's water security challenges. Mashatile, who chairs the water task team, says government has come up with clear timelines for dealing with the challenges. He answered oral questions in the National Council of Provinces yesterday.
We are going to be able to deal with these problems decisively. In fact, when the President at the Water Summit, he indicated to the delegates there that we are going to put strict time frames on all these plans. So we're not just going to say, oh yes, we've got good plans to deal with challenges of water. We are going to put strict time frames to ensure that all these plans should be implemented by particular dates so that we can hold people accountable.
Meanwhile, the Water and Sanitation Department Deputy David Mahlobo told the Ndaba that they are engaging the Special Investigating Unit on the need to establish an anti-corruption forum. He says this is a major step in addressing widespread corruption in the water sector.
We are agreeing now that we are setting up Water and Sanitation Anti-Corruption Forum, where all of us, in terms of ensuring that the 10% people that are there who are facilitating invoices, the 30% people that are there, including the cases that the President has signed proclamation, SIU in the department, in the boards and municipalities are implemented. But more importantly, we must have civic education around integrity management, including issues of lifestyle audits.
Former National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula will be back in the High Court in Pretoria this morning. Her corruption case was postponed in January. This after the state succumbed to the defence demand to disclose two sections of the docket of the accused. Mapisa-Nqakula is facing 12 counts of corruption and one of money laundering for allegedly extorting a multi-million rand bribe from a contractor while she was the defence minister. Sibahle Mota reports.
Earlier this year, Mapisa-Nqakula's defense and the state agreed to sit in a round table after an agreement was reached to disclose Section B and C of a docket. Section B and C deal with the correspondence and investigation diary. Mapisa-Nqakula's defense believe that the disclosure of the two sections contains information that will vindicate her. Mapisa-Nqakula is accused of receiving kickbacks worth approximately 4.5 million rands while she was still the defence minister.
The EFF has welcomed the Constitutional Court judgment, which has dismissed lobby group AfriForum's application for leave to appeal the ruling, which found that the Kill the Boer chant did not constitute hate speech. The party has described AfriForum's appeal at the Apex Court against findings of the Equality Court and Supreme Court as a frivolous and cynical attempt to weaponize the legal system and silence black resistance. EFF leader Julius Malema has continued to chant the song, most recently at the party's Human Rights Day event in Sharpeville in southern Gauteng. The EFF's national spokesperson, Timbi Msane.
The EFF has always been clear. We will not be intimidated, silenced, or censored by racists who refuse to acknowledge the sins of their past. The liberation struggle belongs to us, and no court, no lobby group, and no reactionary force will ever erase our history or dictate how we remember our struggle. The Constitutional Court ruling is a victory for truth, for historical justice, and for the freedom to commemorate our fight against oppression.
And finally, King Charles has spent a short time in hospital after experiencing side effects from his cancer treatment. The 76-year-old British monarch was diagnosed with an undisclosed form of cancer in February last year. The BBC's Vincent McAverney has the details.
A statement came out late on Thursday evening from Buckingham Palace advising us that the King had been driven in a car to a hospital after experiencing side effects for his cancer treatment. He spent a bit of time there but then was driven back to Clarence House. We're not told what exactly those side effects were. He had to cancel several meetings with ambassadors on Thursday afternoon, but we're told that he was well enough to partake in state papers and some calls on Thursday evening. The palace sources are very much downplaying what has happened. They're saying it is merely a minor bump in the road in the general direction of recovery of the King.
Recapping the top story, Deputy President Paul Mashatile will today officially close the National Water and Sanitation Indaba at the Gallagher Convention Centre in Midrand. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
R5 can't buy you a pie and cold drink anymore, but Outsurance is still committed to saving you big bucks on your car insurance. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for R500 cash, and make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very busy Friday morning for Joburg motorists. A crash involving a bus on the N3 north at Heidelberg Road coming in from Spreadview. That's heavy. And then major delays from Elands Interchange up through Galulis. There's a stationary truck as you exit the N3 onto the N12 out to Boksburg in the airport. So that N3 run through Bedfordview, very heavy. And then a crash coming into Joburg, the N12 and R24 after they've merged before Galulis. The N12 is in extreme delay back to Jet Park, and the R24 is pushing back halfway towards Barber Road. Also smash on the Mike 1 North going up towards Glenhove Road. That's causing some backlogs from Parktown, and a crash on the side of the N1 North at Rivonia. That's why you're feeling the heat right back as far as sort of Bayers Nordia territory this morning. Heavy pressure on Pretoria's N1 from Montana coming down towards the N4 Emma-Glenny split. Here's the other big one, leaving Durban up to Pietermaritzburg. A truck crash between Ashburton and the Market Road. It looks like all lanes might be blocked. There's a really big backlog on the N3 and a big backlog on the R103 Polly Shorts option as well. So if you're going out towards the Pietermaritzburg side, you might want to delay travel. There's a truck crash on the M7 at Belleville Road at Queensborough, holding you up towards the Pinetown area, and Cape Town, the N7 South. Roadwork still there at Fort Trekker Road. Traffic now pushing all the way back through to Franz Conradi. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it is soccer. Mamelodi Sundowns' Peter Shalulile is 1 goal away from history in their Nedbank Cup thriller taking place today. And more soccer, Royal AM back on the market after their deal falls through. Details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 7 on this Friday. Hey, good morning and welcome to the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. Here's what's coming up on the show over the next hour or so. We'll be telling you about the budgetary process as it plays itself out in Parliament and explaining to you what are the various bits that make up what you and I call the budget, because it's not just one document. It's a couple of documents, in fact, all of them, legislative proposals that need the majority of Parliament to support them for them to then become the actual budget and fiscal framework and appropriation, etc. So I'll be in conversation with Cedric Froelich, who will be taking us through all of those processes and how they will be unfolding over the coming days. Then we'll tell you about Itala Bank and the spirited debate that has now ensued earlier on this week at the National Council of Provinces. At the heart of it, really, and a key thread being the argument that says the institution should be saved from liquidation, and regulatory gaps being, we're told, being at the heart of some of the problems, well, at least from the perspective of the politicians who were arguing it out in Parliament. Kaya Sitole coming through to talk to me about the fate of Itala Bank, as well as some of these arguments that are being made in Parliament for it to be saved from liquidation. Then a bit later on, also in this half hour, I'll be in conversation with economist Elise Kruger, and it turns out you guys actually have more money in your pockets than you did a year ago. The South African salary earners, we are told, saw their purchasing power climb in February, with real take-home pay reaching its highest level in 3 years. So Elise Kruger will help us make sense of all of that. So that's how we're looking for this first half hour of the second hour of the show. So let's get started. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Friday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard, to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
13 minutes after 7. As the week wraps up, the country is now mere days away from potentially living through a period of unprecedented fiscal policy uncertainty, with a budget possibly not adopted by a parliamentary majority vote. Until the debacle that was this year's budget, few of us had really understood Parliament's role in finalizing the budget, because the ANC had always had a majority that meant that what the finance minister would announce in his speech was guaranteed majority support in the national legislature. But as you and I know, that script was torn to shreds in last year's elections, and now we are all learning what the finance minister proposes is just that, proposals to be dealt with by MPs as money bills in terms of the constitution. So let's unpack what is likely to unfold in the coming days. I'm joined now by the National Assembly House Chairperson for Committees, Oversight and Public Participation, Cedric Frolick. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So as I say, many of us did not really have an appreciation for the role of Parliament in finalizing the budget. What is the status of what the minister presented on the 12th of March as you and I speak this morning? Is it a budget, or is it a set of proposals, and what needs to happen for it to become the basis for spending?
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe, and also to your listeners, and thank you for the opportunity. The minister presented budget proposals to the National Assembly when he tabled the budget. We must keep in mind, Thulasizwe, that the budget is not a single document, but rather a set of interrelated budget instruments that is now undergoing different parliamentary and public processes before it can become law. Where we are today, and this morning at 9 o'clock, the Joint Committees of Finance and Appropriations will meet to consider the public submissions, the responses from National Treasury, and then come out with a report to the National Assembly on whether they accept or wish to amend the framework as tabled by the Minister.
So when would we know whether the budget, the instruments, and you're talking here about the fiscal framework and revenue proposals, division of revenue bill, appropriation bill, when will we know whether they have the full support of a majority of members of Parliament?
The first instrument to be considered will be the fiscal framework, and that is scheduled for consideration in the National Assembly next Wednesday. That will be on the 2nd of April. But we'll get a clear indication this afternoon, Thulasizwe, after the committees have convened, the committees I refer to, because in there they must indicate whether they accept or wish to amend. Now, why is the amending part so important? If they say we wish to amend, then the minister must be given at least 2 days, 48 hours, to respond to the proposed amendments prior to the submission of this report to the two houses. So there's a lot of important work and considerations by the political parties in that committee that will take place this morning.
So the ability to amend, does that apply even to the proposed 0.5 percentage increase to VAT for this year, and also a similar increase for next year? I saw some commentary some time ago that suggested that it doesn't really apply. Does it apply to that as well?
Thulasizwe, we also saw such commentary, and we wanted some legal certainty. Our legal services have advised us that VAT will be imposed from the date as announced by the Minister of Finance, which is on the 1st of May 2025. The increase that was announced in the Minister's budget speech on the 12th of March, is that a standard rate change from 15 to 15.5% will kick in on the 1st of May 2025 and will continue to apply until the effective date of the second increase of 0.5% from the 1st of April. What is Parliament's role? Parliament would have to pass legislation to give effect to the announcement within 12 months for it to have a permanent effect. So Parliament may well come to a different conclusion, but that is subject to the discussions that will take place this morning in those two committees.
But your advice is that it will kick in regardless, but all you have to do as Parliament is pass legislation in terms of its permanence.
That's correct.
So tell me, just as a parting shot then, let's talk about spending by departments, because in the United States they have a government shutdown whenever they can't agree on a budget, and we used to laugh at them, but I don't know, where do we stand? What happens with spending? Because we can't suspend the ability to spend on key programs simply because the politicians can't find one another and agree on a budget that can achieve that majority support.
Well, we're moving into unprecedented areas. However, the Public Finance Management Act allows the executive to continue spending temporarily based on previous allocations until Parliament approves the new budget. This provision ensures that essential government services continue without disruption.
All right, let's see what happens. So today will be all eyes and ears watching what happens with the joint committees there. Thank you for joining us this morning. That's Cedric Froelich there, who is the National Assembly House Chairperson for committees oversight and public participation.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
SASSA Gold Card beneficiaries can still come and collect their new Postbank Black Card. Avoid the risk of not receiving your grant. Join over 1.3 million beneficiaries that are already conveniently receiving their grant using the Postbank Black Card. There are multiple selected outlets nationwide where you can swap your SASSA Gold Card for the new Postbank Black Card. Dial *120 *355# to find one near you. Standard rates apply. Postbank, your bank.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
20 minutes after 7, a spirited debate has ensued in the National Council of Provinces this week over the pending liquidation of KwaZulu-Natal's Itala Bank. A key thread among parties arguing for the institution to be saved from liquidation was the argument that its closure would be a major setback for economic transformation and would exacerbate financial exclusion, particularly for historically disadvantaged communities. Let's welcome independent analyst Kaya Sitole to unpack that for us. So Kaya, that debate taking place in the National Council of Provinces and also various political parties, including the IFP, making themselves heard about the need to save Ithala from liquidation. What do you understand to be the call in the context of what led us to this point? Ithala not really holding a banking license, and despite certain regimes being put in place to allow it to apply for that, not really being able to get it over the line.
Good morning. I think the crux of the call is that the political parties are asking for a belated intervention into a crisis that they themselves essentially created. And what really created this crisis is that over many years, it's been very clear that a decision needed to be made on whether Ithala was going to move onto a fully fledged bank or if another alternative was to be found. And in that particular decision making, it was the responsibility of the politicians to then firstly make the decision on what needed to be done and then create the enabling instruments that was going to get us there. So whether it was detaching Ithala from its provincial state ownership model, which is where the problem really emanates, or whether it was changing the rules of the land so that they could be given some latitude to operate differently, that is what needed to happen. When it didn't happen, the regulators then ultimately said, look, we regulate a system where the rules are meant to be equal or at least equitable across all operational entities. And if we are to persist with this model of granting an exemption, it may well be that everybody then says, well, what's the point of the rules? We also want an exemption. So that's the risk that the regulators were facing. And I think at some point in time, the regulators took the view that actually a decision had to be made. And if a decision was not to be made, it fell onto them to come back and say, actually, the exemption no longer applies. And if it doesn't apply, you must decide whether you want to apply for a full banking license. And that didn't happen.
So much of the talk has also been about Ithala's role in funding developmental finance and also bridging the access gap in terms of banking services for historically disadvantaged communities. Tell me a bit more about that. What are the highlights of the role that Ithala has played, and is there credence to those arguments that say you would be losing that ability to be transformational with this institution?
Well, what makes Ithala specifically unique is its footprint. So it has a very rural footprint, which a lot of the other financial institutions simply just do not have and are unlikely to have. And the reason they're unlikely to have that footprint is that when you do decide that you want to have a presence in a particular market, you consider particular issues like, how many people are possibly going to use your services and whether it's going to be a viable entity, whether it's a branch or whether it's a division of a branch. And in instances where banking systems and banking services have evolved so much and become so sophisticated, it will be very difficult to imagine that any of the other banks that don't have a presence in a particular community will go and justify being there, particularly when you look at the income profile of the communities that Ithala serves. Yeah. So the exit of Ithala from that will indeed create a vacuum, but that vacuum then gets mitigated by the question of, well, are these people are able to get on access into other banking platforms and other banking services, which is the first question, and the answer will be yes. The more difficult proposition is whether they are then able to access those services at the same price point or with the same ease that they were able to do so when Ithala was in their community. And that is something that obviously depends on who they migrate to and whether those people, those new financing institutions are able to offer the same suite of services that has been offered by Ithala.
All right, Kaya, let's leave it there. Thank you for your insights this morning. That's independent analyst Kaya Sitole.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's turn to this story now. The South African salary earners, we are told, saw their purchasing power climb in February, with real take-home pay reaching its highest level in 3 years. And that's according to the latest BankServe Africa Take-Home Pay Index. While nominal pay showed only a slight increase, easing inflation, we are told, helped to boost real earnings. So let's speak now to Elise Kruger, independent economist. Good morning to you, Elise, and thank you for your time. So what are the factors? Many people will say, I don't feel that I earn more or that my rent is worth more than it was, a year ago. But according to this take-home pay index, that's exactly where we are in terms of purchasing power. What are the factors that led to that reality?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Yes, what we have seen in the Bank of Africa data since last year has been this constant tick up in the nominal take-home pay index as well as in the real in the last couple of months. So maybe to talk about the nominal first, I think in the nominal salary sort of environment, we have seen that companies are faring better since last year compared to the previous 2 years, thinking 2022-23, when we were hard hit by load shedding and other factors, also very high inflation in those 2 years. So since last year, we started to see inflation moderating. From the start of last year, about 5.3% headline down to like 3% by year end, and we're still sitting at about 3.2% on our headline number. So we have seen better salary increases in nominal terms. If you then also take into consideration the moderation in inflation, your real salary increase has opened up. And the first increase was actually last year, 2024, the first increase since 2020. And now we are seeing the first of this year that this narrative is continuing, that we see a fairly healthy increase in the real take-home pay.
So when you talk about nominal increases, you're talking about, objectively, what the average salary, annual salary increases. Are you saying that companies have been granting higher than what they used to, or is it coming off a low base from the years immediately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the economy?
Yes, I think basically sort of two ways. The one is that it is a slight low base because we had difficult years in 22 and 23. And in that time period, we had companies saying, I cannot afford to give a salary increase, but I can keep you inside, in your job. So let's just get through this period. And then afterwards, started to increase salaries again. So we had that in the 2 years post-COVID. But also, I think the fact that companies have started to make more profit. Last year, we saw that the gross the surplus of companies, the profit margins have increased. So the environment has been more conducive for companies to offer better salaries. So that's definitely on the one side. And we've seen last year, even on the official data of the Reserve Bank, an uptick in nominal salary increases. Obviously, there's a range. And, if you look at private sector versus public sector versus unionized industries, there are a discrepancy in those.
So that's on the one side. And then if I understand you correctly, then you say that then coincides with inflation starting to ease, with the result that combined it has that effect of better take-home pay. But tell me about the risks, because while we talk about this, we are told that there are actual real risks that this trend may not continue for long.
Well, yes, let me say, in terms of inflation, I do forecast that this year will remain a very low inflation year. We're talking here 3.6% average headline compared to last year's 4.4% and the previous 2 years above 6%. So on the inflation front, yes, although it will creeping up towards the end of the year. But on the other side, just in terms of your purchasing power, where I do see a risk, and that's, like a new risk that's entered our equation since the last budget speech, is indeed the fact that there are higher taxes to be collected from salary earners, both on the side of consumption via the VAT rate increase on the table, and also in the sense that there is no CPI adjustment for the income brackets, tax brackets. So you will, if you are close to the ranges of moving to a new bracket, you can end up giving quite a bit of your increase back in terms of higher taxes. So that is also, I would say, an additional headwind for the positive story on the improved purchasing power of salary earners.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Elise Kruger, the independent economist. Bringing us to 7:30, let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation says government needs 800 billion rand to fix water infrastructure. The Social Security Agency, SASSA, has urged grant beneficiaries who have not yet switched from its gold card to the Postbank Black Card to urgently do so. This follows the extension of the deadline from the 28th of last month to the 30th of next month. And filmmaker and activist Max du Preez has described his longtime friend, the late music icon Johnny Clegg, as a decent human being. Du Preez was speaking at the unveiling of a life-size statue of Clegg in Cape Town. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Galuli's interchange is a mess this morning. You might want to try and get onto some local routes just to avoid some real heavy traffic. Crash scenes on both Joburg bound and sort of Boksburg bound, eastbound if you like. So the N12 coming in from Boksburg's very heavy. You'll pick up the heavier stuff around sort of Rondebolt Road, maybe back as far as Atlas Road, and then you're sitting it all the way to Galuli's. R24 coming out of the airport queues from Barbara Road. And then you've got some really big traffic on the N3 coming up from Germiston to get through Galuli's past the crash on the eastbound N12. Same sort of deal coming down from Edenvale on that section of the N3 as well. Just some gridlocking going on trying to get off the N3 and onto the N12. Crash at Spruitview just up by Heidelberg Road. N3 North is heavy into that one. Crash on the Mike one near Glenhove Road. No gaps in the traffic between Ormonde and Melrose. It's pretty solidly back through there. Crash at the bottom of the N1 south before Buccleuch, so delays coming through Midrand all the way down this morning. And the N1 out of Pretoria quite slow from Montana down towards sort of Linwood Road territory. Durban crashes all over the show in the wet weather conditions. A truck involved in a collision a little bit earlier going up the hill towards Belleville Road on the M7. If you're on your way to Pinetown, that's a backlog. Crash on the M13 near Old Main. Very heavy from Kloof heading out towards Hillcrest this morning. Hillcrest through Kloof down Fields Hill is pretty busy. It always is with the rain. And you've got this major truck crash between Ashburton and Market Road causing a big backlog Peter Maritzburg bound and quite a substantial backlog on the Durban bound carriageway as well. And Cape Town R300 under pressure. Crash between Stellenbosch Arterial and Van Riebeeck Road causing a queue back towards Delft area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you once again. It might be 1 for the money, 2 for the record for Shaluk Goal.
Who's going to stop him?
Shaluk Goal.
Shaluk Goal. That's what I think we're going to rename the PSL. Shaluk Goal.
Yeah?
It should work. Look, he's heading for a record. That's the PSL record of 129 goals, which is currently held by Siyabonga Nomvete. Shalulile will lead Sundowns tonight in their Nedbank Cup quarterfinal clash against Sekhukhune United. Now, he already holds the Nedbank Cup record with 14 goals and has scored 4 times against Sekhukhune in previous encounters. A brace tonight would see him level with Nomvete's tally. Kickoff is at 7 p.m. You can catch it live on SABC Sport. Now, Royal AM's hopes of financial rescue have been crashed after the much-publicised club sale fell through. The SARS-appointed curator confirming that the Durban businessmen who bid for the club failed to pay the agreed amount before yesterday's deadline. Players were back at training after the club believed the deal was done, but now uncertainty looming again over the future of the KZN outfit. Boxing South Africa are launching the National Boxing Championships, their own version of the Boxing League, which will debut at the Arena Holdings headquarters in Johannesburg today. Promoted by the young and new female boxing promoter, Annie Kala, the tournament will be a festival of flyweights, all fighting in 6-round bouts. The good news for the boxing fraternity is that the National Boxing Championships will also offer good pay packages. That's according to the Gauteng Provisional Boxing Manager, Leshnolo Ramachole.
I'll be quite honest, what NBC is coming with is actually good for boxers. You know, it's very motivational. The amount they pay in boxers, some people fight for that money at provincial titles and already they are paying for it in a 6-rounder. This is good news for boxing and definitely motivational to also the managers and everybody else. So in terms of compensation of boxers, they are nailing it, and hopefully this is the start and we're going to get even better. And I hope they are setting the pace and other promoters are just going to follow trend in terms of the compensation of boxers. We gladly actually love what they are paying the boxers. Thank you.
World number 1, Aryna Sabalenka reached her 4th WTA Tour final of the year with a dominant 6-2 win over Jasmine Paolini at the Miami Open tennis semi-finals. And Novak Djokovic defeated Sebastian Korda 6-3, 7-6 in their Miami Open quarterfinal. The world number 5 Djokovic will play Grigor Dimitrov for for a place in the finals. And Taylor Fritz recovered from letting slip 6 match points to beat Matteo Berrettini 7-5, 6-7, 7-5. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. So Ndauling, in this hour, let's talk about the construction sector. We watch what happens with cement sales as part of an indicator of what's happening with the construction sector, as well as, then by extrapolation, what is happening in the economy. PPC's board has approved funds, and it's quite significant amount of funds that we're talking here, for the construction of its cement plant.
That's right, Tulas, and them also just showing confidence in that construction sector. I mean, earlier this week, we spoke about the Afrimat Construction Index, where we've seen morale or sentiment improve for 3 consecutive months. And I guess PPC's board approving this CapEx just also showing their confidence in the construction sector. So they've approved 3 billion rand in capital expenditure for a new integrated plant in the Western Cape. The plant, with a capacity of 1.5 million tons of cement per year, will replace and increase the capacity of the existing site. The project is expected to start in the second quarter of the year and will be completed by the end of 2026. Now, PPC has partnered with Sonoma Overseas Development Company for the construction of the plant. The new plant will provide a boost to PPC's production capacity and help meet the growing demand for cement in the region. Now, in addition to the new plant, PPC has also announced a partnership with Yellow Door Energy to provide solar power to its operations. The solar power purchase agreement will supply clean electricity to 4 of PPC's operations, reducing the company's reliance on Eskom, and I guess demonstrating its commitment to sustainable energy. Now, markets really liking the news, with the share price closing over 12% higher in yesterday's session.
Who is CA Sales, and tell me about them delivering double-digit profit growth?
CA Sales is quite an interesting business. So they operate in the retail sales sector / the consumer goods sector. They have clients like Tiger Brands, Coca-Cola, and Heineken. And what they do, they don't necessarily make the products, but they help these consumer goods companies get their products into the stores. So it could be from a distribution perspective, it could be from a supply chain perspective, where they're actually driving these companies' products into stores like Pick and Pay, ShopRite, etc., etc. And they've said that they've reported a 25.3% increase in full-year headline earnings. The company's growth was driven by recent acquisitions, expansion into new regions, and organic growth. During the year, the group acquired a 49% stake in Roots Sales for 70 million rands, expanding its presence in the informal market in South Africa. CA Sales also acquired the remaining share capital of Mac Mobile Group for 37.6 million rands, enhancing its data and IT solutions capabilities. CA Sales expressed confidence in the opportunities presented in Southern and East Africa, citing growing economies, investments in infrastructure, and a favorable business environment. Now, despite acknowledging global economic instability and supply chain disruptions, CA Sales remains optimistic about its resilient businesses and growth prospects, and looks to continue to make big acquisitions.
I love the variety you bring to these reports, Ndauling. Lastly, give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
The stock's still trending in the red, Tulas. There in Asia, as traders brace for next week's expected wave of U.S. tariffs, while auto firms extended their painful losses following that announcement. And we've seen Asian markets all in the red, with China's Shanghai Index and the Japanese Nikkei taking the biggest hits. In Wall Street, similar mood playing out, with futures also in negative territory. Markets now turning their focus to the PCE figures out later today. Remember that those figures are the Fed's preferred inflation measure, so that will be watched quite closely today. Then coming back home, markets in the red as well. The JSE closing under the flat line, losing 0.03%. The rand in the meantime slightly weaker at 18.28 to the dollar this hour.
That's Ntaoleng Lechela there with her second report of the morning. Look out for more of her insights, and she'll be coming back just after 8:30, in which report she will also give you a sense of the kind of day to expect in the markets on this Friday.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's say good morning to Lerato Tsebe, an independent Africa researcher standing in for Sipho Mantula this morning. Lerato, let's start with, we've been hearing from the DRC foreign minister. What has the minister been saying about South African troops and their participation in the mission in the DRC?
Good morning to us and morning to your listeners. Minister Teresa Wagner met with her South African counterpart Ronald Lamola yesterday at Durban in Pretoria. She's here on part of a review for the SA and DRC binational commissions. Yesterday she was saying during her presser that the DRC is rather indebted to South Africa, and they will never forget the contribution of the South African troops to the SADC mission in the DRC. This obviously follows the loss of 14 soldiers from South Africa and others from within the region that are fighting in the Eastern DRC against M23. Minister Wagner is wrapping up her diplomatic tour of the region after she traveled to Burundi, Tanzania, and Malawi, where she met with her respective counterparts in those countries. These were all obviously the countries that were part of the troop contributing countries that formed SADC's peace enforcement mission in the Eastern DRC. During her meeting, she also confirmed, as we all know, that the DRC is in talks with the United States over the United States gaining access to strategic minerals in the country. But she did emphasize to us that there has been no agreement that's been concluded. This is all happening against the backdrop where yesterday the chief of the UN peacekeeping mission in the DRC, MONUSCO, Binton Keita, has briefed the UN Security Council, telling them that the situation in the Eastern DRC remains rather complex and very tense.
Yeah, so it's an interesting conversation, that aspect that has to do with the U.S. accessing minerals in exchange for getting involved in that situation in the DRC. Tell me about the growing concern around South Sudan, and in particular, the arrest of Vice President Riek Machar.
Yeah, Thulas, the situation's a bit tense as well in Juba. If you remember, obviously, on Wednesday, about a convoy of 20 heavily armed vehicles entered the compound of First Vice President Riek Machar on Wednesday and had him arrested. Now, yesterday, the UN mission in South Sudan is calling for restraint and calm and asking for all parties to recommit themselves to the peace accord. This comes after, obviously, his arrest and his party now saying that the peace agreement of 2016 has now totally collapsed. Yesterday afternoon, Kenyan President William Ruto tweeted that he had had a telephone call with his counterparts in Uganda and in Ethiopia, and they've decided to send an envoy to Juba to try and de-escalate the situation. Kenyan President William Ruto also did emphasize that he'd spoken to Vice President Riek Machar, and that he is also urging for calm. So the situation is extremely tense in the South Sudan as well.
And to our immediate northern neighbor in Zimbabwe, tell me about this call for demonstrations for the 31st of March and the related warning by the Zimbabwe police barring people from carrying items that can be used as weapons?
Yeah, Thulas, as you know, a very wanted Zimbabwean general and fugitive, very outspoken war veteran, Blessed Bombshell Geza, is calling for demonstrations against the administration of Emmerson Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe on March 31st. Now, in response to that, the Zimbabwean police yesterday have now issued a prohibition order, barring residents from carrying any items that can be used as weapons. They're enforcing this for a minimum of 6 months. Now, in their category of weapons, they're including catapults, machetes, swords, knives, and or daggers. And they're saying that anybody who is found carrying any of these kinds of items is facing a minimum of 6 months in prison.
No, I must say though, maybe it's many years ago when I covered Zimbabwe, I didn't know demonstrations in that country to be characterized by that kind of carrying of weapons and the likes. But I don't know. I've been gone from there for quite a long time. Lerato, thank you for your time this morning. That's Lerato Tsebe, the independent Africa researcher.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take some of your calls this morning. Let me start with Jeff in Middelburg. Good morning to you, Jeff. You want to talk to me about the decision of the Constitutional Court around the singing of Dubula Ipunu.
Good morning, Thulas, and good morning to your listeners. I just want to first and foremost respond to the call that was earlier, saying to your studio that, look, we should forget.
Yes.
We should compromise for the sake of international community, particularly appeasing US. I think that as oppressed people in South Africa, we have compromised a lot. And I want to say that the person who called in the studio perhaps is privileged. Look at the legacy of apartheid that people are battling. That legacy of apartheid, you can see it is amongst us, and day in and day out you get our young people affected by it, and of course elderly people like ourselves affected by it, and for that reason this guy, I think, is a little bit short-sighted to say that we must compromise on our history, we must compromise on our struggle song. The Constitution is correct, the Constitutional Court is correct.
Jeff?
People that are saying the rule of law must be obeyed, now they're turning around and say that, hey, wara.
Gotcha. Jeff, I've got to move on. Thank you for that. Thank you for making that point. Let me see if someone else wants to weigh in on exactly that. In fact, let me take Lerotodi in the Northwest. Good morning to you, Lerotodi. You also want to weigh in on the singing of Dubulipun.
Yes, yeah. Let me start here, Thulas, going back to in 2019 when we were going to election, when Andile Ngitama were racist publicly and even read in his T-shirt, land or death. The Constitutional Court ruling in favor of him, because that time Freedom Front Plus take him to court. But again today, the Constitutional Court, again, they're ruling in favor of Thulasizwe Simelane. This clearly, I can say, we have a racist judiciary joining a racist human rights, because you know, Thulas, even in a human right, they never act against on a favor of white people. They never do that. So now I can tell you, this is clearly a hate speech which is allowed by South African judiciary publicly. So I want to tell Kali Kriel, you must carry on to fight for the right, because the right has been taken away.
All right.
Judiciary and human rights.
Gotcha. Lerotodi, thank you for making that point. Just to the point you're making about Andile Ngitama, actually I should go back and check what was the outcome. So I can't engage you from an informed basis at this point. I will go and check on it and see what the outcome is. But the point you made, let's see if someone else holds a counter view to what Lerotodi was saying. Peggy in Mpumalanga, good morning. Also on the same issue of singing of Dubulipun.
How are you?
Very well. How are you, Bob?
Very well. I'm tempted to ask maybe what you call a question of ramp before I get into this issue.
I think just get into it because we don't have much time.
Fine.
Yeah, just for this morning.
Okay, it's fine. What I want to say, Nguni, is that, you know what, we seem like, going always to these courts, and the courts are captured. It is very evident that the courts are very captured because, number one, if not yesterday, the day before yesterday, you were speaking, somebody spoke about Orania. And in Orania, there are certain practices that are being practiced. Even they are using the old flag of South Africa. And they are using all the norms and things that were done apartheid is theory practice in Orania. The Constitutional Court does not speak about Orania as if Orania is not part of South Africa. And it's like...
But Peggy, very quickly though, Peggy, the Constitutional Court won't, of its own accord, raise the issue of Orania. Do you know of any litigation that has been brought to say the existence of Orania and whatever restrictions on black people accessing Orania and it being an enclave? Do you know of any case that has been brought to say that is against the Constitution?
Even though there is no case, but let me say to you, the influence of Orania are the consequences of such things that are happening in our country. Because people from Orania they are not detained or isolated in Orania. They have a great deal of influence of what is happening here in South Africa. We know who's funding Orania at the end of the day. I was just going there. But I want to say that these are our values and these are our own cultures. And we cannot be held at ransom with whatever liberated us. This is a song that we chanted, and this is a song that was composed to ensure that it consoles the heart of people of South Africa because of the history. History you cannot erase.
All right. Peggy, thank you for that.
Yes.
Let's leave it there for this morning. That's Peggy in Mpumalanga there. All right, we'll take more of your calls a bit later on the show, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes. I'm seeing all of them coming in. We'll make time for it a bit later on.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very heavy backlog in Galulis this morning. Earlier crash scenes and broken down vehicles on both the eastbound and westbound side. There's also a breakdown on the west around sort of Craft Road territory. So coming through from Boksburg all the way to Galulis, it's just jammed up very heavily. The advice would be to use some side roads and avoid that. R24 coming out of the airport's heavy to get into the N12 as well. And because of the breakdowns on the eastbound side, you've got a big queue of traffic on the N3 from Edenvale and a big backlog from Albert and Germiston on the N3 North, just trying to get through Galulis and past those obstructions on your way to the airport or on your way towards Boksburg and Benoni. Earlier crash on the M1 North at Ravonia, keeping traffic heavy coming through from the Randburg side. Crash on the N3 North at Heidelberg Road. Big traffic passing Spraidview this morning as you get into that scene. Pretoria, collision N1 South between Rigel and the R21, so that's quite slow coming down from Linwood Road and heading north. A crash at Boerta Avenue. That's actually starting to back traffic through Brockfontein and back on towards the N14 Krugersdorp Highway. So between the R55 Pretoria West exit and Boerta Avenue, there's a lot of traffic on that run through. Just on that southbound side as well, going to the crash after Rigel, there's a lot of congestion anyway between sort of Montana and the N4 highway. So that's your sort of first queue, and then straight after you're into the sort of collision queue as well. Major delays between Ashburton and Pietermaritzburg, both directions. Truck crash in the Central Reservation just north of Ashburton. If you're going to or from Pietermaritzburg, it's heavy. Collision on the M7 at Queensborough. It's quite heavy this morning both ways. Out from sort of Bel Air, Wakesley, up towards the Belleville Road exit, and also in from North Dean, North Park on the M7 towards the N2. Big traffic there also. Cape Town, roadwork still on the N7. Jakes Curville Drive, one lane open at 4 Trekker Road. That's heavy. And a crash on the R300 this morning before you get to Van Riebeek Road. As a backlog through towards the Delft area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mzansi, the Powerball Jackpot Storm guaranteed at 81 million rand this Friday is your chance to make it rain lots of cash this March. Don't delay. Play Powerball for the guaranteed 81 million rand jackpot today and you could win big. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. eTuba is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
Switch to stream with SABC Plus. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime. Zero subscription fees. Download SABC Plus on Android or iOS and watch the Betway Premier Soccer League, the English Premier League, and the Bundesliga live. You can also catch up with Uzalo, Skim Sam, Generations on demand and listen to your favorite radio stations live. Ukhozi, Umhlobo Wenene, Radio 2000 and 5FM, all for free. Switch to stream with SABC Plus now. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime with SABC Plus.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
4 minutes to 8 here on SAFM. KwaZulu-Natal police are sounding the alarm over criminals posing as police officers to commit house robberies and other crimes. Recent incidents, especially in KwaMashu, show suspects using fake police identities to gain entry into homes. Authorities are urging residents to stay vigilant and verify anyone claiming to be with the South African Police Service. Let's speak now to Mary de Haas, who is a KZN violence monitor. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So, earlier on this week, we were talking about a video that featured police officers ostensibly and allegedly involved in the commission of a crime against G4S security guards. And I'm wondering, Mary, when we talk blue light gangs, which is more prevalent in your experience? Is it the impersonation of police officers, such as the warning issued by KwaZulu-Natal Police, or actually the actual participation by police officers in the commission of crimes?
Good morning, everybody. Well, look, it's very difficult to say which is more common, but we know that these incidents in which people claim to be police members arriving at people's homes, and it's are pretty common. I mean, or not new. I don't know how common they are, but they have been reported over the years. But there are also incidents in which police themselves, perhaps not so frequent, but a lot of the police collaborate with criminals kind of without your knowing it. You know, people in, for example, KwaMashu or Nanda will tell me, well, you know, these are visiting their neighbor who's a drug dealer. You know, you get those sorts of reports. Yeah. So it's difficult to say one type is more common than the other. But look, I think what is really important, though, I mean, there's also been abuse of blue lights over the years. You know, people who shouldn't have them, people wearing police uniforms that we don't know where they came from. And, I mean, this just means you've got to control things much better at the police management level. You've got to kind of keep an inventory of who gets uniforms and whether they're accounted for. If police resign, for example. But I think the main message I would want to say to people is, and this also affects people in rural areas, and often they are police arriving, and they come at night to your home, which is, of course, not that safe in a rural area, and they break the door open and they say they're there for guns. Now, the first thing you do in a case like this is identify whether it's in a urban or rural area. You demand the appointment certificates, obviously. And the problem, as you say, is that there may not even be, there may be fraudulent ones. But the really important thing, I think people must be able to immediately get hold of their local police station, because the other thing is in rural areas, police rock up. And they're not actually even from the area, and that's illegal if they haven't signed in at the local police station that they're operating in the area, you know. So I think people must know wherever they are, urban, rural areas, if people arrive, and even on roadblocks, ask their identities.
Is that easy though, Mary?
They must get hold of the station to verify these are their police.
Is that easy though, to verify the identity of a police officer? I'm thinking about interactions that I've personally had where I felt that if you were to insist that show me your appointment card, give me your name, show me your badge, etc., actually you might, and these are genuine police officer interactions, they would feel aggravated and you might escalate the situation. So is there something that needs to be done in the standing orders of police officers that would make it easy for a civilian to say, show me your ID card?
Look, you are entitled to do that. regardless of standing orders. The problem is there's regulation after regulation in the police that doesn't get followed. I mean, I've got the whole list of them during COVID, and they had specific instructions they were just ignoring. It's a matter of management. We have really bad management in too many areas. We have good management in some, but I think the most important thing is to get a functioning number for your local police station. And this is a problem because often I've phoned during the day on a weekend and the phone numbers aren't working in KwaMashu, for example. People must insist on having, and this is a particularly serious problem in rural areas where the infrastructure is often bad. They must have, and this they must do through their local stations. Everybody must have a copy, have details of the cell phone number of the duty police officer or even the station commissioner.
Right.
There must be a functioning. They must phone the station and say, do you know about these people?
Right.
They hurt my home.
Okay. All right. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time and your insights. That's Mary De Haas, a KZN violence monitor. Let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news.
In our top stories, 800 billion rand needed to fix water infrastructure and commitments by South Africa and Portugal. Good morning. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation says government needs 800 billion rand to fix water infrastructure. The committee's chairperson, Leonard Besson, says creating more water sources instead of fixing the aging and damaged infrastructure is a waste of taxpayers' money. He was speaking yesterday on the sidelines of the National Water and Sanitation Indaba at the Gallagher Convention Centre in Midrand in Gauteng.
We cannot just build dams and that water goes down the drain in pipe leaks. So I think it's also important that we have invited the private sector. The private sector needs to play a huge role in the future of South Africa's water. And therefore, I'm also happy that the private sector is here. We've got people here that has brought new innovation that we can look at and go forward for a better South Africa with more water security.
Meanwhile, Deputy President Paul Mashatile will today officially close the two-day Indaba. President Cyril Ramaphosa, who opened it yesterday, underscored government's commitments to tackling the country's water security challenges. Mashatile, who chairs the water task team, told the NCOP that government had come up with clear timelines for dealing with the water challenges.
We are going to be able to deal with these problems decisively. In fact, when the president at the Water Summit, he indicated to the delegates there that we are going to put strict time frames on all these plans. So we're not just going to say, oh yes, we've got good plans to deal with challenges of water. We are going to put strict time frames to ensure that all these plans should be implemented by particular dates so that we can hold people accountable.
The Social Security Agency, SASSA, has urged grant beneficiaries who have not yet switched from its gold card to the Postbank Black Card to urgently do so. This follows 2 extensions of the deadline, which will now be on the 30th of next month. So far, 1.3 million of the country's 2.6 million beneficiaries have successfully made the switch. The acting CEO, Themba Matlou, says they are confident all beneficiaries will do the switch over by the deadline. He, however, says the challenge is that many beneficiaries wait until the last minute.
You know, the challenge is to find that people will almost rush at the last hour when we announce the date to say the 30th of April, and people will come on the 29th. Or people will come on the 28th to say we still have time. But what we have done is to build a contingency and make sure that we split the capacity and the workforce that we have to make sure that when this type of pressure comes, we are able to absorb. And it has proven in the recent weeks with regards to this intervention.
International Relations Deputy Minister Alvin Botha says South Africa and Portugal are committed to developing mutual beneficial political and economic relations. He hosted his Portuguese counterpart Nuno Sampaio in Pretoria yesterday. They discussed bilateral cooperation between the two countries. Poiters says there is an opportunity to expand relations, particularly in science and energy.
We are happy that the Portuguese bilateral consultations gets to be convened week after the very successful and highly acclaimed 8th South African EU summit, where the European Union, of which Portugal is an eminent member of the 27 bloc, have made commitments to the South African partnership in relation to 4.7 billion rand strategic investment in areas of pharmaceutical infrastructure delivery and obviously your renewable energy. That is an important catalyst as we seek to mitigate unemployment, poverty and inequality in South Africa.
And finally, filmmaker and activist Max du Preez has described his longtime friend, the late music icon Johnny Clegg, as a decent human being. Du Preez was speaking at the unveiling of a life-size statue of Clegg in Cape Town. He says the values Clegg championed are needed now more than ever.
So I'm the descendant of French, Dutch and German settlers who came to the southern tip of Africa 350 years ago, and unlike other colonialists in Africa, never went back home. They even called their tribe after the continent. After they lost political power 30 years ago, it appeared for a while as if they were prepared to assimilate with the rest of our nation. But now they have reverted to wanting to be a separate European tribe once again. Johnny would have reminded us today that the safest, richest future would be to embrace the people and culture and music and humanity of our continent. That is the only medicine to treat fear, resentment and marginalization.
Recapping the top story, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation says government needs 800 billion rand to fix water infrastructure. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still worth avoiding Galuli's interchange out on the Ekurhuleni side. Gauteng, there's been a series of crashes and breakdowns, not surprising given the weather conditions a little bit earlier. Very heavy. N12 R24 routes in from Ekurhuleni. The N12 backed up almost towards Boksburg. R24 halfway back towards Barber Road. N3 south from Limbro Park and N3 north from Germiston. Pretty much all approaches into the interchange. Absolutely stunning. N3 north, a breakdown at Spruitview up by Heidelberg Road. So the N3 coming out of Spruitview towards Joburg stays heavy. And a crash on the M1 North at Boerta Avenue in Centurion, causing quite a heavy backlog. Now, if you've got to go between Durban and Pietermaritzburg, there's just been another massive crash around Linfield Park on the Pietermaritzburg side. That's the second one. The other one further up, just past Ashburton, involving a truck in the Central Reservation. So that Ashburton crash causing delays both ways, and this collision at Linfield Park going to just start cutting in and causing some additional delays. If you need to go Durban, Pietermaritzburg, make sure you've got plenty of time to get through in both directions. Otherwise, cancel, ring ahead, say you'll go up a little bit later after the seeds are being cleared. And Cape Town collision on the R300 going north at Van Riebeeck Road. That's still pushing a queue back into the Delft area. Highways generally a lot lighter around Cape Town this morning with this sort of commencement of school holidays and a Friday, if you like. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer action. AmaZulu are out to end their winless run against Chippa United, and the Bulls and the Sharks are leading the South African charge in the United Rugby Championship. All the details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning. It's just gone 9 minutes after 8 on this Friday. It's good to be in your company. We're into the third hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. So, just reflecting on the conversations we've started over the last while. Of course, the central one has been around the Constitutional Court slamming the door on AfriForum and their desire and application to appeal a judgment of the Supreme Court of Appeal, which itself was a confirmation of a judgment of the Equality Court around the singing by Julius Malema and members of the EFF of the song Dubulipunu. That decision of the Constitutional Court to say we won't even hear you on appeal means that the SCA judgment is the final word on that matter, at least legally. But you do get a sense that we will be discussing this quite a lot going forward, despite it being finalized in as far as the law and the Constitution is concerned. I don't think the debate is over around that matter, and I do see a number of people already putting calls through to want to talk to it a bit more. And then in the last hour, I was intrigued and fascinated by the conversation, and in fact educated to a great extent. The conversation I had with Cedric Frolick, the National Assembly House Chairperson for Committees, Oversight and Public Participation. And I think it really played the role that we had envisaged, that, you know, because we've never been here where the finance minister delivers a budget speech, but there's uncertainty as to whether enough members of parliament will carry it through with a 50% plus one vote in Parliament. So he was very able to explain what exactly happens going forward. So don't worry, we won't have a government shutdown in the sense of what you see in the United States. There are provisions within the Public Finance Management Act that would enable government departments to continue spending based on last year's budgets. But it's really, really not an ideal situation. So those are some of the highlights for me. But hey, you drive this show, so do feel free to bring forth any matters that may be exercising your mind this morning. So I'll take your calls now. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Friday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with Outsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real Outsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the Outsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
So let's jump straight into it then. A lot of you wanting to talk about that outcome from the Constitutional Court on the question of the singing of Dubulipunu. So let me take one or two voice notes. In fact, I want to do this so that we were thematic in the way that we approach these things. Let me take Spiwe in Newcastle, because Spiwe wants to talk about something completely different. Good morning to you, Spiwe. You want to talk to me about the municipality, their increasing rates. What about it?
You know what happened? They targeted, hi, sir, and your listeners.
Yes.
They targeted a certain empty stands. They increased the rate with 100% increase.
Wow.
You know, empty plate. So empty plots. So I called them. They said to me, those empty stands, they are regarded as a business property. I said, how come? Because it is not a business property, but a residential. They say it's because there's nothing there. See, I have no water, nothing. But now they increase with 100%.
100% increase.
I used to pay 1.4, because I don't want to be on areas.
Yes.
I said to them, they must deduct from my account. They pay from my account, for 10 years. Now, last month, they said I owe them 8,000. I asked them, how come? They said it's because it's empty. So now those empty property regarded as a business.
Wow.
They said to me last year, they started last year, July. But I said, you never been calling Bizo and you tell us, never I was not informed. Told us nothing. They have my email. They have my address. Nothing. 100%.
All right.
From 400 rand up to 1.4.
Sure.
1.4.
Wow.
Empty land.
Thank you for calling in and sharing that experience with us. And I wonder if anyone else has a similar experience in terms of the rates policy and whether there's been a dramatic change in areas around Newcastle. And I wonder if someone who works for the municipality in that area would be able to just give us a call and clarify what is the situation around what Spiwe is saying. Right, let's get to this now. Someone wants to talk about Elon Musk, and I wonder if it links to the theme around the outcome from the Constitutional Court. Let's hear.
So Elon Musk becomes a crybaby when it comes to his Starlink. But they're doing the same thing to TikTok. And now I don't understand, because this is almost similar. So why are they crying foul while they're doing the same thing to TikTok? Double standards here. TP Western Cape.
Yeah, I hear you. And actually, I don't know. Last time I heard any commentary on this was the official comment that said, what is he talking about? Why is he saying that he's not allowed to operate Starlink because he's not black, when the fact is that he's not even applied for him to be licensed, to have it licensed in South Africa? How do we grant permission to, operate when you've not even applied?
Morning to us. It's Yandisa in Tembisa. Thank you to the Constitutional Court. And I'm going to sing that song in a stadium today, watching the football. I want the South African to sing that song everywhere they go, even in church, so that the AfriForum can understand that there's no place for racism in this country.
So you don't understand how important what you're saying is in this context, because in the reasoning of the Supreme Court of Appeal, they were emphasizing that the context in which the song is sung matters. What you said is actually quite crucial, because in their reasoning, if you read that judgment, they talk about how on all occasions where Julius Malema sang the song, it was in the context of an EFF event, and it was, in pushing the message against land and economic injustice in the country. And they were saying that read it in context, and in that context, no one, no reasonable person, let me not say no one, because clearly some people do, but no reasonable person, according to the SCA, not me, according to the SCA, no reasonable person would see it as incitement to cause harm to Afrikaners in this country. So the context in which it is sung is also just as important, as is the historical context. Lonwabo in the Eastern Cape, also on this issue of Dubulipuno. Good morning.
Good morning, Thulas. Still on that issue, without even going to these courts, is there evidence that seeks to suggest that there are so many deaths of the farmers or the Boers that emanates from singing this song, or not even singing this song, that says so and so or so many white people were killed because of this song? Is there evidence to suggest that?
Yeah.
Number two, even this thing, when the crime stats are being announced, there is this tendency that the white farmers, their deaths are announced separately from the deaths, criminal deaths or violent deaths of other people. There's a lot of people who are dying in the township. There's a lot of people who are dying in the rural area.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people dying everywhere. But their stats are never announced separately.
Right.
But the farmers, they want their deaths to be announced separated from the rest. Thanks.
All right. Lonwabo, thank you for that. You also talked to the point of how these farm murders are recorded. I know that the SAPS includes all farm murders, so the crimes that occurred on farms, whether they're whoever perpetrates them, and reports on those as well. So we've been hearing also this talk about AfriForum acknowledging, following a meeting with the SAPS. I don't know where that will lead, whether AfriForum is genuinely acknowledging now that there's no white genocide and no targeting of farmers, of white farmers on the farms. I don't know. I heard the story. I don't know where I stand on it, because I do believe that you might soon hear Kali Kriel singing a completely different tune. Let's see. Mzi, in the Eastern Cape, good morning. Also on the issue of Dubulipun.
Good. Now we are looking for evidence. Evidence to do what? When the song is explicit of killing of people. What context are these judges are talking about?
Sure.
If it was...
Mzi, your line is letting us down now. Yeah, we lost Mzi there. All right. No, we'll take more of your calls a bit later on. Thank you for calling in. We'll take a bit more as the show progresses.
The South African government has implemented economic reforms to address challenges in energy, logistics, and the visa regime. The national rail policy is aimed at modernizing the rail sector, and the reduction of water use license backlogs has attracted 24.4 billion rands in investment. The recently gazetted visa system regime will attract critical skills and investment whilst boosting tourism to ignite the economy and enable job creation. These reforms demonstrate considerable progress in transforming South Africa's economy and addressing the binding constraints on growth. Building and transforming the economy. A message brought to you by Government Communications.
Abafana besithende want to ensure that Amakhosi walk off the pitch empty-handed, but the Golden Black Boys from Naturena are chasing 3 points to cement their spot in the top half. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Mzansi's beautiful game. Golden Arrows versus Kaizer Chiefs this Saturday, 29 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
22 minutes after 8. So the city of Joburg is under the spotlight for all of the difficulties and challenges and really the crisis of service delivery that the city faces. But therein, we are told, also lies the potential and opportunities for various sectors to get involved, as well as the inclusion. Of late, the city's acting Chief Operations Officer, Helen Boters, has been talking about the need to build sustainable cities and also amplify women's voices in development and the role of women in property and infrastructure. Helen Boters joins me now. I must say up front, Ms. Boters, thank you for joining me. But I must say up front that we will talk about the role of women in infrastructure and the development of the city. But I can't not ask you about some of the issues that have been playing themselves out around your role as acting Chief Operations Officer. But let's start with the issue of women playing a role in development. To what extent does the crisis in Johannesburg, including the crisis around derelict buildings and properties hijacked and the likes, provide an opportunity for women to play a role in the city's development?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your show and to talk about a critical discussion, the summit that we had yesterday, and that is called Women in the Built Environment, Empower Women in Property and the Built Environment Summit, where I gave the keynote address on the role that women must play in the economy, especially in the urban environment, urban development, and in the built environment. I think women play a critical role in defining the look and the shape and feel of the property and the built environment space. And it's important that we have more women in the space and that we grow each other. And I think that's what the summit focused on. It focused on how do we build, how do we include women and ensure that the space of development is inclusive for A, the economy, and B, the growth of women, young women, women of various diverse groups of women. So because we see women as community builders, we see women as entrepreneurs, we see women as transcending the barriers and that they face in both the property and the infrastructure sector. And women face a number of barriers: less access to capital, and fewer exposures to the procurement pipelines. And so there's all these barriers that we need to overcome so that we grow as women and that we support them. It's quite a critical space for women to play in. We've got women engineers. We need to prepare the next generation of female planners, engineers, architects.
So conceptually, many people would agree with you, the need to do all of the good things that you list. But tangibly, what can we point to by way of programs, plans, and actual actions that you are taking as an administration to realize that?
So women must respond to whatever opportunities there are out there. That's how they get involved. They must respond. They must form partnerships. They must network with every aspect of the built environment, and that's the only way we can get women involved to ensure that we grow them. They themselves have to reach out and respond to what is out there. And you've got a number of institutions that play a significant role in trying to include women and ensure women are included in the construction and the built environment space. You've got CYBIB, the South African Institute of Black Property Professionals. You've got SAPOA. You've got the various engineering services. You've got the Urban Planning Association. So it's quite a vast array of associations that women must reach out and be involved in. You've got the property practitioners associations, etc. So it's important that to be included. You can't sit on the sidelines and say, somebody come and find me. So you yourself have to reach out.
Right. Ms. Botas, I would not be doing my job properly if I didn't then ask you about all of the controversies that seem to follow you. Why does scandal seem to follow you? And in light of that, why should South Africans believe you are an ethical leader?
Well, I'm not sure that this is the platform. I understand that is your role. But I think that, like I've said before, if you feel that I behaved unethically, then put the evidence on the table and I will respond to it, which I've always have done. So I myself
It's not me feeling that you've done something unethical. It's the SIU feeling you've done something unethical to the extent of recommending your disciplinary action as well as recommending you be prosecuted.
And I've gone through that process, and I think the evidence is there to show that I have gone through that process.
The disciplinary process?
Yes.
But what about the prosecution? What do you know of where things stand with that?
I've gone through all the processes, the legal processes that I have to go through, and that's all I'm going to say.
So, for anyone who's not aware of what we're talking about, all of this emanates around the procurement processes, around the time of the lockdown, and the defogging contracts that were awarded back at that time. But since then, there's been quite a number of other issues that have embroiled you in scandal. Let's talk about your role right now as acting Chief Operations Officer of the City of Johannesburg. Has that ever been ratified and endorsed by the City Council as required by the Municipal Systems Act?
The board has done what they have to do in terms of the law, and I trust that they follow the law, I'm 100%, and so has the city manager followed all the processes.
No, we're talking about your role as acting COO. Yes. The requirement of the Municipal Systems Act is that because you report directly to the municipal manager, the city manager, your appointment was meant to have gone through an endorsement and approval by council. And our understanding is that has never happened.
It's my understanding that it has. I'm sure the city manager has followed all the processes that council requires him to follow.
Because the argument is that you were appointed directly by the mayor, and because you and him are comrades, and you get along.
I've got a professional working relationship with the mayor.
Mhm.
I've got a professional working relationship with all my colleagues. So I was appointed, and I was appointed in a fair and transparent manner. So I don't know about a comrade relationship. I
Mhm.
know about a professional relationship.
And then there's this
Thank you.
situation around the Metro Center and the work that is going to be done there. Where does that stand? There were concerns that, in terms of its specking, the specs that were put in place, and you basically took the decision to empty out Metro Center, the various departments, and are leasing. So the question becomes then, why are you leasing at such high costs when actually your property portfolio includes what, some 29,000 properties?
The 29,000 properties are not just buildings. In fact, we've got very few buildings in the city. The 29,000 properties in the asset register relates to roads infrastructure, power infrastructure, water infrastructure, very few clinics, recreation centers. We don't, as a city, have buildings that will house office accommodation. We went to council and we announced to council that the state of Metro Center, and council gave us the full permission. There's a number of reports, and we've been going to council since 2014 to announce all the problems with the Metro Center from a built environment perspective. So council then gave us permission for the safety of the employees to vacate Metro Center. We then said to council that the solution to fix up Metro Center is to do a private-public partnership.
Sure.
And we then approached National Treasury, and that's where it is, to ask for permission and to draft the private partner, to appoint an advisor for us to do the specs for the redevelopment of Metro Center, and then to partner
is this
after they've done that.
Is this envisaged Triple P with the Biotech Capital, the same
no.
group that from whom you also lease properties?
No. The Triple P is, nobody's appointed for the Triple P at this particular point in time. As I've mentioned, National Treasury is running a program, a procurement process to appoint an advisor for the redevelopment of Metro Center. There is no service provider appointed for Metro Center.
So just lastly then, Ms. Botes, I've got to ask you about the deadly fire at Usindiso building. The Gampepe Commission, in their first report, they had these words to say, and I don't believe you've had the opportunity, and I'm giving you the opportunity now to respond to these words. Quote, "The board of directors of the Johannesburg Property Company must consider taking appropriate action against Ms. Botes, the Chief Executive Officer of the Johannesburg Property Company, for the total disregard of managing the Usindiso building despite knowledge of the disastrous state since at least 2019. Going on to say that the COJ and its entities, including the JPC, must bear the responsibility in part for what ultimately became the tragedy of the 31st of August 2023 fire. Your response?
My response is that you'd have to take that up with the city and the board of directors of JPC.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time.
You.
And thank you for answering these questions, because it is important for you to account as a public servant, a senior public servant in the city of Johannesburg. That's Helen Botes, who is the acting Johannesburg Chief Operations Officer. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, 15 people have been arrested in an informal settlement in Pilgrim's Rest in Mpumalanga. The arrests were made in police operation Valamgoti. The suspects are aged between 18 and 45 and do not have any valid South African documents. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation says government needs 800 billion rand to fix water infrastructure, and the Social Security Agency, SASSA, has urged grant beneficiaries who have not yet switched from its gold card to the Postbank Black Card to urgently do so. This follows 2 extensions of the deadline, which will now be on the 30th of next month. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, Galuli's interchange, still worth avoiding. It's been one of our top stories this morning. It's been a series of collisions and stationary trucks and broken down vehicles just on the eastern side of Galuli, so it's having a sort of multiple route impact. N12 and R24, it's in from Ekurhuleni are heavy. The N12 queues back to Jet Park, R24 heavy through the Edenvale exit to get into Galuli's, N3 south from Modderfontein, N3 north from Elands interchange, so really very heavy. Other issues this morning, a crash, another one on the Mike 1 North near Glenhove Road, so delays getting up from Parktown on your way to Santon, and a crash on the N1 North at Buerta Avenue in Centurion. That's quite heavy from the N14 Krugersdorp Highway through Brockfontein up towards the scene. Also another crash, this is the second one this morning on the M1 South at Rigel, so coming out of Pretoria, that traffic remains heavy as well. 2 big truck crashes on your way to Pietermaritzburg this morning, one by Linfield Park, the other just after Ashburton. There's very heavy backlog going on from sort of Umlas Road on your way past those scenes towards Pietermaritzburg, and a decent queue coming out of Pietermaritzburg towards Durban as well. Cape Town, N7, Jakes Cabell Drive, the single lane section at Voortrekker Road is still there as it has been all week. Heavy backlogs, try and avoid that route through the course of today. It will get progressively heavier, and peak hour this afternoon can sit for about 50 minutes going into that lot. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So Zai, AmaZulu have not had much to say about Usuthu. They've not really had much, yeah?
No,
they're hoping to change that.
Yeah, AmaZulu haven't won in 3 games. I don't know where they left their GPS. They don't know where the goalpost is. But today could be the day, or rather tomorrow, where things change, because Durban's finest is going to try and weather the chipper storm, all happening at Buffalo City Stadium, East London. 3:30 is the kickoff tomorrow, with AmaZulu desperate to end their winless streak. Now, both teams head into the clash with similar objectives, fighting for a place in the Betway Premiership's top 8. AmaZulu currently sit 7th, while Chippa are close behind. Now, Mamelodi Sundowns striker Peter Shalulile is just 2 goals away from matching Siyabonga Nomvete's all-time PSL record of 129 goals. Shalulile will lead Sundowns tonight in their Nedbank Cup quarter-final clash against Sekhukhune United. He already holds the Nedbank Cup record with 14 goals and has scored 4 times against Sekhukhune in previous encounters. A brace tonight would see him level with Nomvete's tally. Kickoff is at 7:30 tonight. Elsewhere, the Premier League has announced it will have 2 transfer windows this season to allow Manchester City and Chelsea to sign players before the Club World Cup. The window will open between Sunday the 1st of June and Tuesday the 10th of June, then close for 5 days before running again from the 16th until the 1st of September. This year features the first expanded FIFA Club World Cup, which involves 32 teams and adopts the format of the regular World Cup of the past few years. Now, Chelsea and Manchester City are the Premier League teams in the tournament, which takes place in the United States from Sunday the 15th of June. And finally, the Springbok Sevens side, the Blitzbok, are confident heading into the iconic Hong Kong Sevens, which kicks off today. Coach Philip Sneema knows they've put a clear strategy in place. The Blitzboks, fresh from a runners-up finish in Vancouver, are drawn in Pool B alongside Uruguay, Australia and New Zealand. All teams they've beaten recently. They begin their campaign with Uruguay this morning just before 12 o'clock.
Uruguay showed they've won most of the teams from the circuit this year, New Zealand, Fiji, Australia. So they're going to come out that first game. They have nothing to lose, so we know it's going to be a physical match. as a South American team, they always make things physical, and they're going to hunt you down until the last second. Doesn't matter what, so it's going to be a tough game. But I believe if we get out of the blocks and do what we trained over the last couple of weeks, the scoreboard will look after itself.
We'll tackle more sport with John Hediker at around 12:30 on SAFM. I'm Zaikan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's start with reforms that are meant to address the issue of water, the water crisis. Tell me about President Ramaphosa and the confirmation that there's going to be is it a new water state-owned entity and it will be operational from next year?
That's right, Thulas. Now, this new agency will consolidate non-municipal water infrastructure assets such as dams and land and streamline the country's water resource management. In the Business Day article, it said that government aims for the agency to replicate what SANRAL has done with managing the country's road infrastructure. The SOE's key objectives include generating private sector investment in the water sector, improving water quality in the country, and enhancing the overall management of water resources. Now, we know that, the country faces significant water infrastructure challenges with an estimated 256 billion rands needed annually from about 2023 to 2050 to achieve adequate water security and access. Now, Ramaphosa has condemned the exploitation of the water crisis by water mafias who collude with municipal officials to create businesses out of transporting water. The president also emphasized the need to address financial mismanagement, insufficient revenue collection systems, and high levels of physical water losses at the local government level. Now, despite these challenges, the Department of Water and Sanitation has made progress in establishing catchment agencies, with all 6 agencies gazetted and boards appointed.
So, in Dowling, I've been wondering, man, things don't sit in your checkout, your trolley there for your online shopping, your favorite thing. And that's because take-home pay, we're told, has hit a 3-year high.
Yes. But really from a low base, if we're being quite honest, Thulas, when we look at those numbers, yes, good news coming through with employers seeing a significant boost in their purchasing power as real take-home pay reached its highest level in 3 years. Now, according to the latest BankServe Africa Take-Home Pay Index, the average real take-home pay rose by 10.7% year-on-year to 15,799 in February, up from 15,665 in January. Now, this increase is largely due to the low inflation environment that has prevailed since mid-2024. The average consumer inflation rate is forecast at 3.6% for the year, the lowest since 2020. But despite this positive trend, consumer confidence has taken a hit due to the VAT hike that's been proposed and other fiscal policy shifts. Now, one reason wages have remained steady in the growing number of multi-year wage agreements between employers and unions. For instance, we've had mining giants like Harmony Gold and Amplats signing 5-year deals with average increases of about 6%. Looking ahead, average nominal salary increases of 5.3% are expected, suggesting a real wage increase of 1.7% for the year. Now, this, combined with the two-part retirement system withdrawals and interest rate cuts, is expected to support household consumption expenditure moving forward.
Lastly, Dowling, what kind of a day can we expect on this Friday in the markets?
So local markets likely to extend losses today as the mood remains downbeat. In terms of company news, traders will be waking up to an update from Telkom. And then looking at the currencies, the dollar trading stronger and weighing on emerging market currencies, but the rand has been able to hold its own, remaining steady at 18.22 to the greenback, stronger than 18.28, which was recorded in the past hour. Then over in the US, investors have their focus on the upcoming PCE figures that will help us make sense of the inflation picture. Ahead of that, futures are surprisingly in the green, a turn from yesterday's downbeat close. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks are still losing steam theme as sentiment remains downbeat ahead of those inflation figures.
That's how Ndauling Lechela. She's always right on the money. Thank you for that, Ndauling. Have yourself a fantastic weekend.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
Mzansi, the Powerball jackpot storm guaranteed at 81 million rand this Friday is your chance to make it rain lots of cash this March. Don't delay. Play Powerball for the guaranteed 81 million rand jackpot today and you could win big. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120*7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. eTuba is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
SASSA Gold Card beneficiaries can still come and collect their new Postbank Black Card. Avoid the risk of not receiving your grant. Join over 1.3 million beneficiaries that are already conveniently receiving their grant using the Postbank Black Card. There are multiple selected outlets nationwide where you can swap your SASSA Gold Card for the new Postbank Black Card. Dial *120*355# to find one near you. Standard rates apply. Postbank, your bank.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Right, let's take your calls now and take the conversation forward. Let me take a call from Mike in Newlands. You want to talk to me this morning, Mike, about the budget. Good morning.
Yes, good morning to the Thulasizwe. And the interview you did with that lady, Burgess, I must say was impressive. It's so nice to hear somebody that we pay a lot of money for having to answer some tough questions. So well done on that interview. Listen, just on that subject, we have this financial budget coming up soon, and I think what's really important is that we keep the credibility going. And I won't deny it. I mean, I don't think I'm the only SAFM listener that doesn't really take kindly to having people like Froelich, who chairs this committee. You'll remember he was found discredited by the Zondo Commission. His name went forward for investigation. Nothing happened. He features in the Agrisi book, In the Belly of the Beast, on page 205, where Agrisi writes that he witnessed 40,000 rand being put into Cedric Froelich's pocket. Now, he's never disagreed this. I say this allegedly, but I'm just telling you what it says in the book.
Yes.
And of course, he did also chair the discredited incumbent committee. So I do ask the question, these guys, should we really have them as spokesmen? This is an important part of our history, and we need people with credibility, and Cedric Froelich is certainly not one of them.
All right, Mike, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I think the ANC and others who deploy these people perhaps should take that to heart, that you would do well to dissipate this cloud, right? And have these matters ventilated to the ultimate end. And I think there's been an acknowledgement even on their part to say it's not enough to say there were findings in the Zondo Commission and then you keep quiet. Well, if you don't agree with findings in this country, we know what you do, right? You take that thing on review. And so far, I don't know, I think I saw one review application. Was it Salim Essa? I think it was Salim Essa. Everyone else who said we will review this thing, we're still waiting. Mvusiwe Kaya, good morning in the Eastern Cape. You want to talk about South Africa-United States relationships?
Ever since you became a lawyer, you are quick in referencing legal cases.
There is no such. That is not.
Brother,
yes, sir.
I'm worried about how South Africans are engaging on U.S. and South African relations. This thing of people thinking it's tit for tat, it doesn't work in in foreign policy and trade relations. I mean, some people are arguing as if they are still SRC leaders or students putting demands to the VC. It doesn't work that way here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You don't say, I'm going to hold this, I'm not going to go to class because you are not paying us this and that. People need to do more. I think we need to enrich our conversation.
Yeah.
Here is my last point. I'm sure you will agree with this. I saw a picture of Mbokazi stopping the Sundowns player, and East Durban guys called it a Constantia neck for all those that are going to the two oceans.
Ooh, Constantia Neck killed me the last time I did Two Oceans. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Nawawa, thank you for calling, man. It's been a while.
Thanks, man.
That's Mvusiwe Kaya there in the Eastern Cape. Let me see if I can quickly move to... all right, I'll come back to the calls in a moment. Let me take one or two voice notes. Let me take this one. Both of them, actually, that have to do with the ruling of the Constitutional Court around not hearing the appeal by AfriForum on the singing of Dubulipun.
Good morning, Thulas. How are you doing? I hope you're fine. Mine is different regarding the court judgment of EFF and AfriForum. My question is, if it was Jacob Zuma singing that song, will the courts were going to rule in his favor or what? That is my question. Thank you.
Sure. One would hope that the personality of the person singing really doesn't matter. And I've not seen any evidence to the contrary. So let me leave it at that, to say, as far as we all understand and accept, the courts look at the law and interpret it. We may not always agree with the rulings, right? There'll be many, many people. That's why I say this matter is settled at least legally and constitutionally. But I seriously doubt that politically and perhaps socially this matter has been settled. So I think that's as much as I can say about that.
Thulas, good morning. Half the problem with South Africa is we're so focused on the wrong things. Everyone's excited now because you can sing the song Kill the Farmer, Kill the Boer, and it's not hate speech. Fantastic. Julius waltzing around today. Everyone's happy. Go out for lunch and celebrate. Celebrate what? Failing economy, 50% unemployment, no water, no electricity, highest crime rate, highest murder. But let's focus on that song. That's the way to move the country forward. Brad Marisburg.
Brad, thank you for making that point. And the issues you highlight, I share your concerns absolutely around the socio-economic and economic problems that we face. But I would say to you and challenge you to say, everybody's happy, everybody's excited. I wonder to what extent everyone is happy and excited about this ruling. Look at the number of people who actually do sing the song as a proportion of the South African population, but also as a proportion of the voting South African population. So what I'm saying is, the message and the singing of the song, look at how many people it resonates with. And I think that's as much as I can say. The debate, you can hear the views swing one way the 1 minute and swing completely in the opposite direction. I've had black callers who are supportive of the judgment, and also had black callers who are saying that actually this judgment was wrong. So I would say the democracy continues to be healthy with all of the problems that you point to that also irk all of us. They irk me as much as they irk you. All right, I see your calls, the callers who are holding, Sipho, Mangane, Crispin, and others. I will come to you in just a moment. Let's get a traffic update.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy highways across Gauteng, but only really because of multiple incidents. If you're coming out of Pretoria, N1 South, a crash near Gaasfontein, and then a crash at Rigel. So that's heavy from Linwood. And then if you're going north, a collision at Boerta Avenue. So still quite a heavy backlog coming off the N14 through Brockfontein interchange and up in towards that scene. Galooly stays very heavy. N12 and R24 routes coming into the interchange. The N3 South from Edenvale, north from Germiston, big queues after breakdowns and crashes there this morning. And a crash on the Mike 1 North heading towards Sandton just before Glenhove Road. So from Parktown, that all gets heavily backed up. Durban through to Pietermaritzburg is a mess. There are two major truck crashes, one before Ashburton and one just after Ashburton. So the N3 going towards Pietermaritzburg currently closed, at least at the first scene there before Ashburton, and a really big delay from Umlust Road. While all that activity is taking place on the northbound side, the Durban-bound carriageway is backlogging heavily as well, leaving Pietermaritzburg all the way down through to Linville Park. Also a big crash on the N2 northbound at Umgedi Road. Traffic very heavy from the M7. The traffic is so thick the ambulance is really struggling to even get through and to get to that scene, so it could be a while. And Cape Town, just a reminder, N7 going south. The roadwork still there at Four Trekker Road. Expect big delays, expected to worsen across as we get into the afternoon peak. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Abafana besithende want to ensure that Amakhosi walk off the pitch empty-handed, but the gold and black boys from Naturena are chasing 3 points to cement their spot in the top half. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Mzansi's beautiful game. Golden Arrows versus Kaizer Chiefs this Saturday, 29 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let's take them in quick succession. Crispin in Durban, good morning. You want to talk about this issue of the singing of Dubulipun?
Sure. I think, for me, the Constitutional Court is right. This is a significant part of our history, and we're not really, as a society, into censorship. I think that's fine. I'm from that era. These things, mattered to me in a way because I was, around at the time. I heard these songs being sung and so on. But I don't want my particular agenda or the agenda of my generation to dominate everything. And I think there are questions about people's imagination. This has historical significance, the spirit of resistance and so on. But we need to focus on people's imagination now. How do young people think their way through this? And we can't get the answers from the past. And I think that's where things go wrong. If we can only remember that we're back in 1980 or something like that, no, that's not helpful to young people, to older people as well. Thank you.
Crispin, thank you for that. And I think in the framing of what the arguments and reasoning of the SCA was, they framed it as the song is steeped in history, in its historical context, but it's being repurposed to talk about the current struggles. But I hear the point that you are making, Crispin, that perhaps there's another way, there are other ways that should be explored to help young people facing these current challenges and help their imagination of responding to these challenges of economic exclusion and land injustice, which is what the EFF is talking to in its singing of these songs. Mangane, good morning, in East London, also on the same issue.
Hi, Thulasizwe. Just a quick one. I hear that a lot of people are holding on to the issue of context. I suspect you are too, with regards to this ruling.
No, I'm not. I was just no. Before you even proceed, Magnan, I've not shared my own view. What I did share was the reasoning of the Supreme Court of Appeal, which talks about context. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to bring something, and I think maybe you guys as the media can assist us in terms of pursuing this.
Sure.
Where what is legalistic is not always just. And we need to start building or rebuilding our country from a position of justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
People that suffered as a result of our use of Dubulipunu during the struggle are re-traumatized when we sing that, particularly in a stadium full of people, you know?
Yeah.
In the same way that us as black people, or the majority of us, are re-traumatized when we hear white people or some white people, even if they are sitting in a party drunk, singing the stem from South Africa in its original sense.
Yeah.
So the issue of context has to be taken into account when we're trying to achieve justice.
Gotcha.
And not just say it's now final and right because the judges have said that.
Yeah.
Judges have to judge things based on whether it makes sense legally. But sometimes I think they also need to start bringing in the issue of saying, does it achieve justice as we are trying to rebuild our country?
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Input.
Thank you, Mangane. And I like the balance that you bring to that conversation. That's Mangane there. Let's take a call from Sipo in Centurion. Good morning. Also on the same issue, Sipo.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Tulas. I'd like to agree with Mkhaya from East London. The thing is with this song, I understand the historical perspective of it, I understand the context, but it's a slippery slide to genocide, because think about Rwanda and how that started, they started very small, they started very small. Think about, the genocide that's currently happening in the only remaining apartheid state in the world, Israel. So these things start very small. So that's one thing I just wanted to mention, that
So
we
you-
need to just be careful about these things.
So you don't buy the argument, Sipho, that says, and it was presented by the EFF and accepted by the Supreme Court of Appeal, that these are not meant to be taken literally. This is not literal. It is steeped in the historical context, and you're just repurposing a song. And I don't know if you saw a video of former President Thabo Mbeki from years ago, where he was saying that there's no policy that says kill the poor, kill the farmer. It is a chant. It is Igwijo. You don't buy any of that. You say it goes deeper than that.
I think we raises emotions, just like the previous caller said. It raises emotions. And look, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, we're going to line them up and start shooting, Afrikaner people, but it could happen that one murder can happen, just one can happen because of that song. And one is bad enough. So we just need to think about these things. I'm not saying this song must be abolished, but then we need to think about these things, that it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. All right. Sipho, thank you. Let's leave it there. That's Sipho in Centurion there. Like I said, I mean, the full stop may have been put by the Constitutional Court on the legal arguments and the grounds of appeal and all the doors of appeal. The doors there at the Constitutional Court in Braamfontein are quite heavy. They don't open so easily, and they didn't open for AfriForum. But as as I said, the debate, the societal debate, is sure to continue. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your robust engagement. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana is up next here on SAFM after the news with Ann Musa.
In our top stories, 15 suspects arrested in Pilgrim's Rest and grant beneficiaries urged to replace SASSA gold cards. Good morning. 15 people have been arrested in an informal settlement in Pilgrim's Rest in Mpumalanga. The arrests were made in the police operation Valamgodi. The suspects are aged between 18 and 45 and do not have any valid South African documents. They were found in possession of illegal mining